I'm going to call the Springfield City Council work session to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon.
Here.
Councilor Weber. Here. Councilor Mo. Here. Councilor Bradley. Councilor Buck.
Here.
And Councilor Stout.
Here, thank you. Oh, excuse me. And Councilor Rodley is excused for the evening. We have two items this evening for the work session. One item is interview work for interim council candidates. Turn over to Mayor Bridges.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Welcome back. We're here tonight, meeting early to do the interviews for the council vacancy for Ward 4. The item tonight is a long item. We have 90 minutes for this item. With the number of candidates, we're estimating about 15 minutes per person per interview. And thought we go in alphabetical order for the interviews, starting with Ms. Ackland when we start. I wanted to check with you first about the questions in the packet to see if those were okay in terms of going through those questions. And if you just wanted to start with maybe Board 1 asking the first question and moving around from there, or however you want to work it. That work? And as we discussed, this item tonight is just the interviews. Deliberation is going to be on the meeting on April 20th. You have the candidates are Ms. Ackland, Quadros, Larson, Mann, and McAllister. And we'll go in that order. You have a second item for the payroll tax this evening and the regular session tonight at 7. So we'll be watching the clock to try and switch over at 6:30 will be the plan. If we aren't ready by then. Any other questions?
Okay, could everybody take a quick look at the questions and make sure they are happy with the questions? Okay, so the plan as we do the interview is to start with Councilor Weber, and then we will do round robin with Councilor Stout and go all the way around until we are done. Okay, I think we are good.
All right. Okay.
On that, I know you just asked if we were good, but so for question number 2 is the whole question, quite a mouthful in that one. Just want
Yes.
to make sure.
Okay.
It's a long one. Yeah.
So it's multi-part teams first. Under 15 minutes.
You're up for it though.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
You good? All right. And then the candidate can sit here for the interviews. And we, first person, if you want me to go ahead and call.
Yep.
The candidate.
Hello. Welcome. I'm going to ask the first question.
Ready to dive in?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you value most about Springfield? And how would that perspective shape your priorities and decisions as a counselor?
Well, first, I do just want to say thank you all for this opportunity to be here. I've had the opportunity to speak with most of you over the last couple of months to start learning from you and to share some of my perspective. And I really hope that we can soon work together to serve people of Springfield. One of the things that I value most about Springfield is that it's a small town community that also has the energy and the opportunity of a growing city. And I really enjoy our downtown area, especially the historic buildings and all of the murals and the painted crosswalk. And I'd love to see even more public art in the future. I think it makes us an attractive tourist destination, which is important for our economic development. We're also very blessed with an abundance of green spaces and recreational opportunities, especially the Bob Kiefer Center in my ward. And I think that Springfield is a great place to start and raise a family. And I want to prioritize policies that will help improve the quality of life for our working families. Because that's what makes Springfield special. It's the people and the community and the sense of belonging here that I really value deeply. And looking ahead, I am really excited about where the city is going, especially with opportunities like the Glenwood development and potential for further gateway development. So at the end of the day, I see Springfield as a city of opportunity, and that's what I value most about it and what I want to help continue building.
Thank you.
The council is currently addressing several major issues, including the general fund structural imbalance, economic development in Glenwood and downtown, infrastructure needs, and Eugene Springfield fire governance. Which one or two of these areas would you prioritize, and what specific actions or policy changes would you propose to address them? Separately, are there any new policy ideas or initiatives you believe council should consider?
I've been attending city council meetings for over a year, and as a citizen, I think I have a pretty decent understanding of the major issues that the city faces. But of course, I haven't yet had the opportunity or the information and the resources that are available specifically to city councilors, or the opportunity to dig deep into issues from the council's perspective. So that's my first order of business, is sitting down with the experts, both city staff and other industry leaders, to learn from their experiences and understand their perspectives. I have some thoughts now, but I still have a lot to learn and a lot of people to hear from before I can begin making data-driven decisions on behalf of the city. I do believe that the structural imbalance of our general fund is by far the most pressing problem that our city faces. Without addressing this, we can't work on economic development or infrastructure needs or pretty much anything without it just being a Band-Aid solution. We can't kick this problem down the road. It's here now. And tough decisions do need to be made about what core services the city can afford to provide. The Fiscal Stability Task Force made several good recommendations, and I've been a big public supporter of the payroll tax. And I'm really looking forward to Nathan's presentation tonight to learn more about that and how it's going to reach our general fund. And I also know that the root cause of our structural imbalance and that of many other towns and districts across Oregon is our property tax system. And so as inflation continues to rise, we can't address our budget deficit long-term in a sustainable manner without reforming measures 5 and 50, which was another task force recommendation that I'd like to prioritize exploring. And I've heard that there's increasing interest on a state level to reconsider our tax system. And so I would want to make sure that our council has a strong voice in that process and how it affects Springfield, especially with pushing back against any more unfunded mandates. And as for new policy initiatives, first and foremost, I have both professional and personal experience with how dire our housing crisis is. We need thousands of new units, especially affordable apartments and middle housing here in Springfield. And so I'd like to explore a variety of solutions, including community land trusts and creative reuse of vacant commercial properties, as well as more promotion of our pre-approved building plans and the SDC waivers for ADUs. And then I would also like to engage with the Chamber of Commerce to support our small businesses, because as a former small business owner myself, I really understand those challenges that come with that, especially in this economy. And one thing that's come up a lot in recent conversations is how our businesses need a better transportation corridor to I-5. And so that's something that I'd like to hear more input on. And I also plan to hold a series of town halls and office hours so that I can hear directly from the public as to what initiatives they'd like us to consider. And then lastly, I want to support my fellow councilors on their projects, whether that's the Glenwood development or working with our East Springfield councilors and community to develop a vision for the Bob Straub area and the infrastructure that's needed there for future city growth.
All righty. And some representation. So how would you work with councilor manager form of government, with the councilor manager form of government to advance your policy priorities? How would the city's at-large election systems shape the way you engage and represent with the community? Did I say that clearly enough?
Yes.
I felt like it was a lot, so.
I'm going to answer it backwards though.
It's fine.
Is that just, yeah. So I do strongly support councilors being elected citywide. I think that encourages a more unified approach to governing, and with each councilor being accountable to the entire city, that naturally pushes collaboration and helps ensure that decisions are made with the entire city in mind and not just one ward or one interest group. I also think that that's really important to have individual representation for each ward as well, because the people who live in a neighborhood understand it on a street by street level. They know what's working and what's not working and what the niche issues are. And that insight is important to align the council priorities with neighborhood needs. For example, my ward has a pretty significant chunk of industrial businesses that are vital to Lane County's economy. So that's something to consider as the Ward 4 counselor. And as far as advancing policies that the city manager and staff are able to successfully execute, I always want to talk to as many people as possible to understand the options and to help guide my decision towards what's best for the city. First, I want to hear from the people who are directly impacted from the policies or by the lack thereof. I think that their lived experiences are the foundation from which we should begin our work. And then I also really value the expertise of our city staff. They are the experts in their field and they have more educated opinions on how to address multifaceted situations and problems. And then when it comes to what's doable, what's practical for us, Nancy has that well-rounded knowledge on what do we have the resources for, or how might we be able to shuffle resources around? And so at the end of the day, it's Nancy and our city staff who figure out the details, and it's important to trust their expertise and give them the space to do their work.
My turn? Your turn? Okay. Decision-making and funding. When faced with a complex issue that has multiple possible solutions and varying costs, what process would you use to evaluate the options and select a solution that is both effective and financially sustainable?
Well, there's a lot of complex issues that we're facing, and I've had the opportunity over the last year to observe the council and start getting to know you. And each counselor brings a different perspective and a different area of expertise to the table. For example, I bring a young millennial perspective, and being a current student, as well as both professional expertise and lived experience as a renter and a military background, and all of which would be new and valuable additions to the council. So we're each bringing something different to the table, and that's really powerful for our collaborative governance. And we won't always see eye to eye, but we do have the same end goal to do what's best for the city. And so I believe that there's always common ground that can be found to ensure council cohesion. And there's never a one-size-fits-all situation or solution to any difficult financial decision. And I definitely don't have all the answers myself. And I always want to seek out as much information as possible before I make a decision. I learned in the military to think strategically and to consider all angles and to remember my objective. And once a decision is made, whether you like it or not, you get the job done.
Like that.
All right, I have one additional bonus question and the closing question for you. As you might be aware, right, my understanding is that you currently serve on a temporary on-call librarian role. And are you aware that there's a restriction in the charter about city employees serving on the council? And if so, could you share something you're thinking about how to approach that challenge?
Yes. So since last summer, I've helped out a few days a month at the library as an on-call assistant. And it's been a really incredible insight into how the library serves the public. And beyond my experience seeing how the library department operates, I also serve on the planning commission. So I've learned a lot about zoning and land use, and I've really enjoyed working with Sandy Bellison and her planning staff. And when this council position opened up, the library director, Emily David, was one of the very first people that I got in touch with to let her know that I was considering applying and what that would mean for my job at the library. And she confirmed with the city attorney for me that I could apply for city council, and that if appointed, I will immediately stop working at the library and no longer be on the planning commission. So I believe that my experience working with multiple city departments is an asset as a counselor. And I already have firsthand experience with how the city side, or excuse me, how the staff side of our city government works. And as a counselor, one of my first priorities will be getting to know the other departments as well. And I know that some people only know me for the library advocacy work that I've done in my personal time off the clock as a private citizen. But as you've seen in my application and hopefully in my interview, that's not why I applied for council. The library is just one of many, many things that I care about. And I've advocated for the library because I believe that it's such a valuable asset to the city of Springfield. And I'll bring that same enthusiasm to all of the work that I do here.
All right, thank you. And the last question is, what questions, do you have any questions for us, or is there anything else you would like us to know?
I just wanted to say thank you again for the opportunity to be here. In my one-on-ones, it was important to me to hear about your experiences as counselors and hear what you're each looking for in a colleague. And I think that we all found common ground and have shared goals. And I just want to reiterate that I understand the commitment that this takes, and that I have a lot of respect for it being such a complex role that deals with a lot of thorny issues. And I've already done my homework to begin preparing for this role. And I have the time and the energy and the experience to perform these duties. And I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work on day one.
Thank you so much.
Here next is Ms. Quadro.
Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Are you ready? Okay. What do you value most about Springfield, and how would that perspective shape your priorities and decisions as a counselor?
So I moved to Springfield in 1988 to attend LCC. It was a detour on my college path. I actually started college in Southern California after growing up in a little coastal town here in Oregon called Port Orford. Excellent. However, after a fairly serious broken leg, I was unable to sustain that independence down there in Southern California. So I jumped on the phone and secured student housing on Lindale Drive. The LTD stopped right in front of my apartment, so it was perfect for the condition that I was in. I had physical therapy over on G Street, and I always enjoyed that ride down Pioneer Parkway. It was so beautiful and green. I used Willamette Swim Center to sort of get back on my feet, and I found a church over by McKinsey Willamette Hospital. That little routine and the friendly people got me a job at Willamette. They were building the swim center at that time. I jumped on the committee that named it the Lively Park Swim Center, and that was it. I was a part of Springfield. So when you ask me what do I value our systems. I value our education. I value our services, our green spaces, and I value our people. Those parts and pieces of Springfield shape how I think about decisions. I look at how things are connected, housing, economic opportunity, schools, and basic livability. When those are stable, the community is stable. So as a counselor, my priorities will be grounded in maintaining that accessibility and stability that was there for me in 1988. Supporting thoughtful housing growth, strengthening local economic opportunity, and making fiscally responsible decisions that protect the long-term health of this city that went from being my detour to my forever home. Just as importantly, I approach decisions with an understanding of who is actually living and working in this community, because I've been a part of it for such a long time, both professionally and personally.
The council is currently addressing several major issues, including the general fund structural imbalance, economic development in Glenwood and downtown, infrastructure needs, and Eugene Springfield fire governance. Which one or two areas of these areas would you prioritize, and what specific actions or policy changes would you propose to address them? Separately, are there any new policy ideas or initiatives you believe the council should consider?
So the two areas that I would prioritize are the general fund structural imbalance and then the economic development, because they're directly connected. On the general fund, my experience managing public budgets has taught me that you have to understand not just what's visible, but what's underneath, how decisions are made across departments and how resources are aligned. Before we look to new revenue tools, I think it's critical that we've taken a disciplined and transparent approach internally. That means a comprehensive department reviews of programs and expenditures, ensuring that resources are aligned with council priorities and that we're operating as efficiently as we possibly can. When we're talking about impacts to services like the library, those decisions need to be made within that broader citywide context. So we're protecting core services, but while also addressing the financial reality of our situation. At the same time, I recognize the structural issues. This is not a one-time problem. So if we consider new revenue options like payroll tax, I would want clarity on whether that revenue is stabilizing existing services or funding new initiatives, and the confidence that we've demonstrated strong fiscal stewardship first. So this leads directly into the economic development side. In my experience working in downtown Springfield, early on, I saw how even small barriers, I remember there was a $10,000 fee to open a small business in downtown Springfield. And that barrier upfront cost for small businesses was very limiting. At the same time, we've also seen examples where we've expected returns from corporate incentives that we've given and that didn't end up materializing. The companies left before those long-term benefits ever translated back into our community. One area I would focus on is continuing to reduce those barriers for the small and local businesses. I was looking at things like startup costs, permitting processes, and accesses to space, while being more intentional and selective about how we use incentives for these larger developments. I also think we need to recognize that housing and workforce are part of our economic development. Supporting housing growth and aligning with job opportunities helps us build a sustainable tax base over time, especially within our constraints that we have, Measure 5 and Measure 50. As a broader approach, I would be interested in exploring ways to better align economic development strategy with small business growth and housing development. So we're building long-term sustainable revenue rather than relying on our short-term solutions or our one-time fixes. So for me, the focus on long-term sustainability, strengthening our local communities, supporting housing growth, and making fiscally responsible decisions that align with what our community can support over time.
How would you work within the counselor manager form of government to advance your policy priorities?
So in a counselor manager form of government, I see the role of the counselors as any board of setting direction, establishing policy, and providing oversight while respecting the expertise of the city manager, the mayor, and the staff to implement that work. In my current role, I operate in a similar environment, so I'm very comfortable working within that structure. I absolutely understand the importance of staying in the policy lane and asking for thoughtful, informed questions that help surface assumptions, the trade-offs, and the long-term impacts. It's my intention that decisions are grounded in both data and practical reality. To advance priorities, I would focus on collaboration, working with the fellow counselors to find alignment, understanding your different perspectives, building consensus where possible. And I don't see this role working independently. I see it as being a part of a governing body that has to make thoughtful collective decisions together. Yeah.
And then the second part of that is that how would the city's at-large election system shape the way you engage and represent the community?
Absolutely. So in terms of representation, the at-large system reinforces that responsibility. While I bring a perspective of Ward 4, I also approach decisions with the understanding that my decisions impact the entire city. This means I will listen broadly by engaging with residents, businesses, and community partners across Springfield, and I will make sure that my decisions are grounded in overall health of the community. At the same time, I do feel it's important to me to make sure that voices are heard, especially community members whose voices are underrepresented or haven't necessarily made their way into this room. before. My approach would be to stay accessible, to listen carefully, and to bring those perspectives into the decision-making process as a thoughtful and balanced way. Ultimately, I approach this role with focus on collaboration, a respect for the process, and making decisions that support that long-term livability of the entire community. Steve, it's you.
Very good. When faced with a complex issue that has multiple possible solutions and varying costs, what process would you use to evaluate the options and select a solution that is both effective and financially sustainable?
Okay, so when I'm faced with complex decisions with multiple options, I plan in this situation to start by grounding within the council's adopted priorities and long-term goals. If a solution doesn't align with those, it's not sustainable, no matter how appealing it might look. So from there, I would look at the full picture. What are the costs? What are our trade-offs? What are the long-term impacts? And what unintended consequences come from our decisions? Not just the immediate outcomes. I also think it's important that we're operating as efficiently as possible. That means we're asking whether we've taken a disciplined look across the city, where we can streamline, where we can improve processes, and whether resources are aligned with our highest priorities. At the same time, I don't rely solely on what's in front of me in a report. I think it's really important to listen to both the information that I'll be provided, as well as by the staff, and as well as what I'm hearing from the community and from both my ward and across the city. Ultimately, I do make decisions independently based on that full picture, using data, impacts, and community input. But once that decision is made, I believe in supporting the direction of the council and moving forward together. So for me, financially sustainable decisions are the ones that are aligned with the council's priorities and goals, that are well-informed, and they're realistic about what we can support for this city in the future.
All right, I think I've got the easy one. What, if any questions do you have for, is there anything else you would like to know?
Well, I'm not stepping forward with the idea that I have all the answers. I'm stepping forward because I bring experience working in complex public systems. I understand how decisions impact both the operations for the city staff and the people in the community. And I'm prepared to contribute in a steady and thoughtful way. Springfield has shaped my life in a very real way. And I'm at the point where I have the experience and capacity to give back at this level. So if I was selected, I would come in ready to listen, to ask grounded questions, work collaboratively, and support the council in making decisions that are grounded, fiscally responsible, and aligned with the long-term health of Springfield. I do have some questions though. How would you describe the current working dynamic of the council, and what would help strengthen it?
This is where I tap my friends. Go ahead, Councilor Bunting.
So, I guess I want to tackle this from kind of the new counselor perspective, because getting appointed, it is like jumping into the deep end of the pool. And there's just no two ways about it. So what I've found is that it's been a great experience with all the counselors. Everybody has a different perspective. They bring a different experience. And I haven't found anybody telling me like, this is what I think or what you should think. But what's super valuable is they're like, these are the questions you should ask. This is the person you should talk to. These are the places that you should kind of go to get connected. And these are the best uses of your time. And so I've found that issue to issue to issue. And everything has multiple layers to it. When I sat down with Nathan, he's around here somewhere. I saw him earlier. I know he's here. He's like, well, here's this level. Like, do you want to go into all 30 of these funds in each of these buckets? It's like, well, not today, but yes. And so just knowing who I can go to, what questions to ask, and how to start wrapping my head around different things. And so I found it incredibly supportive group of people. And like I said, everybody's gives we each give ourselves like the space to come up with your own conclusion, but at the same token, kind of guide you into like, this is how you can do that. Like, this is where the information is, because there's a lot out there. So that's been my experience.
So I heard you say that you understand everyone's perspective. So what areas do you feel the council would benefit from an additional perspective or experience right now?
I'll take this one. This one's, it's like, I've seen a couple. I think. With several councils and several groups of people be councils, every council finds its own way. So I don't know that I would say we're missing a certain perspective, but so much as, hey, you have to trust the kind of appointment process that we'll find the right person, and then we will figure out who we are as a body. And even the addition of one person can change how we operate substantially. So anybody that we appoint will have, will have a place and a role and be valued, and this perspective we actually do need. But it just always takes a minute that, we're 6 people plus me, so 7 total people. It takes a minute always to find out who we are as a body and how we want to operate. Sometimes we're fast, sometimes we're slow, sometimes we ask a ton of questions, sometimes we're good. So. Perfect.
Any questions?
No.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Mayor and Council, the next candidate is Ben Larson.
And welcome.
Dive in? What do you value most about Springfield, and how would that perspective shape your priorities and decisions as a council?
Springfield has been just a really interesting place for me to watch grow. I grew up in Crestwell and just moved here a few years ago, and grew up coming here for sporting events or going to parks and visiting family, and I just really it's been cool to see the community like growing together through a lot of changes, and I just enjoy like the fresh energy that I feel like has kind of transpired over the last decade or so, and there's just a lot of like community support. Like our local utility feels like really accessible when I think about other options elsewhere, and community centers, and just all of the parks and protected spaces that people come to recreate in and enjoy. And I guess also, I mean, primarily like the people making it happen, like everybody that's coming together for work in this community, and keeping a smile on their faces for most of it, and just making it a really nice place to be.
The council is currently addressing several major issues, including the general fund structural imbalance, economic development in Glenwood and downtown, infrastructure needs, and Eugene Springfield fire governance. Which one or two of these areas would you prioritize, and what specific actions or policy changes would you propose to address them? Separately, are there any new policy ideas or initiatives you believe the council should consider?
I've been really excited about the plans for Glenwood. I think that there's a bigger opportunity over there. It's like kind of this middle zone between some like very dense metro areas, and a lot of space over there to get people and yeah, also like improve the habitat for wildlife as well. And so, yeah, I think there's that's the one that's like the most exciting for me, I think, is like something that could really change what it feels like to like enter Springfield. And yeah, get like a lot more people in like quality housing close to services and yeah, just like in a really beautiful spot where it's yeah, just close to things and yeah, a lot of opportunities there. And yeah, I would also, I guess, kind of in that vein, like want to be prioritizing the housing affordability and access beyond Glenwood, but I think there's certainly opportunities there and just like throughout Springfield and opportunities to get more people into quality housing through different city programs or looking at zoning and just encouraging more construction to occur.
All right. Got a two-parter here. How would you work within the counselor manager form of government to advance your policy priorities? And how would the city's at-large election system shape the way you engage with and represent the community?
Yeah, so I think it's important that we listen to each other as like sort of experts in our own areas and our own with our own backgrounds, just like using that as additional information to help inform all of our decisions and being like very respectful in that so that, you know, it's clear that we're like one body working together for a common purpose. And so, yeah, I think that looks like listening for the most part and, you know, staying curious, asking questions when you have them. And just, yeah, paying special attention to like when people are presenting challenges so that, you know, you can really tease out like if they're presenting a solution, if they're trying to like brainstorm a solution and yeah, helping use that to help guide the future direction. But yeah, I think, I mean, I'm not saying anything new here. It's primarily like a policy setting, strategy setting and evaluation, as well as like looking at sort of, yeah, performance metrics, I guess, and providing feedback, like respectful feedback when we can to help like improve our processes as a city. And again, yeah, like leaning into trusting staff that they're the experts in what they're doing and using that to like really make us be able to like focus on, you know, those policy and strategy objectives.
My turn. When faced with a complex issue that has multiple possible solutions and varying costs, what process would you use to evaluate the options and select a solution that is both effective and financially sustainable?
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep coming back to seeing if like the goals that we've set, the goals that we believe in are being achieved by those different possibilities and to what degree. So yeah, keeping like the goals of what we're trying to do like front and center and making sure that it's not getting lost. And evaluating that by like bringing in lots of different perspectives that have, you know, lived experience or are experts in sort of what is being evaluated. So yeah, I think it takes a lot of listening, maybe saying some things that you're not sure and you're like clear that you're not sure about that, but it's just kind of something that's coming out as a thought so that you know, you can bounce it around your peers and see kind of where other people are feeling like they're heading towards. And yeah, kind of making that like a move together so that it's not like, all right, I said this and now everybody should get on board, but we're like, you know, trying to get to the same place and being thoughtful about that. And the last piece I'll add to that is like thinking about the problem like holistically, like what are all the outcomes of this decision, making sure that we're not like, you know, having something very bad come out of a decision that you know, didn't seem like it was thought about. And so yeah, just making sure that complex issues get the attention that they need. And you know, if that means like tabling it or having an extra session to discuss it, doing that rather than like forcing a decision just because of the pressure of doing that. And also like making sure that you are being efficient with like resource use and like, does this thing already exist in a different form that we can repurpose or like connect to something that's already happening?
Thank you very much.
What questions do you have for us, or is there anything else you would like us to know?
I just yeah, excited about the opportunity to serve a bigger body, local service, and yeah, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next person is CJ May.
Everybody.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
What do you value most about Springfield, and how would that perspective shape your priorities and decisions as a counselor?
I grew up in a coastal community between San Diego and Los Angeles. And when I came to Springfield to go to the University of Oregon, I was shocked by how few people I could connect with in terms of cultural diversity. And for many decades, it pretty much stayed the same. But recently, our population has become more diverse, and my family and I feel a lot more comfortable here than we used to. I raised 2 biracial sons in Springfield and raised 4 of my 8 grandkids here for a period of time. So we are very critical of some of the things that happen to people of color in our community. And I think I bring a unique perspective on how we can make people feel safe and welcome and respected. Our concerns as a multicultural, multi-ethnic family are the same as anybody else's. We want to feel safe, we want to feel valued, and we want to feel respected. And I think that's my perspective on the thing that I like about Springfield. According to the United Way recent Alice study, 25% of our citizens are people of color. And unfortunately, that comes with a higher rate of poverty than we're used to seeing in our community. And so those are two issues that I am very passionate about. Sorry, I'm emotional about the issues. Yeah, I hope I answered that question. Sorry, I started to ramble. I'm more of a people person than a speaker.
That's great. The council is currently addressing several major issues, including the general fund structural imbalance, economic development in Glenwood and downtown, infrastructure needs, and Eugene Springfield fire governance. Which one or two of these areas would you prioritize, and what specific actions or policy changes would you propose to address them? Separately, are there any new policy ideas or initiatives you believe council should consider?
Number one priority, I believe, is the general fund imbalance. Without balancing our budget, we can't provide the public services that we have promised our citizens. Families need to survive their challenges on a day-to-day basis. We cannot overlook the needs for economic development and the needs of providing services to our citizens. So economic development is kind of like right in there. It's like A1, A2. Because we need to keep businesses here. We need to attract new businesses. The answer to poverty is jobs and money and economics. And we can't have all of those without working on those issues. I would be remiss if I didn't try to sneak in a third one. Fire Station 3 is 8 houses from me. I worked really hard to make sure that levy got passed, and I worked very closely with IAFF 851, and we'll continue to work with them on their governance issues. But first, we have to provide services, and we have to have money, and we'll work that all in.
Okay. So, how would you work within the council or manager form of government to advance your policy priorities? And then the second part of this is, how would the city's at-large election system shape the way you engage with and represent the community?
What was the first part of that question again?
Right. How would you work within the council or manager form of government to advance policy priorities?
As many of you know, I'm on the Willamette Lane Park and Recreation Board, and it's run very similar to this, where you ran to them and told them how to do it all. So I am used to getting information and advice from as many people as I can. And I think it's a very similar structure. The staff brings us all the research and the data and options, and then the board of directors wrestles with that and comes up with a consensus building answer to some of the challenges that we face. So I'm kind of used to that whole structure. Also, as a trade union person, there was a lot of management, board of directors, union workers. So I have decades of experience in that venue and understand the restrictions, though I was sort of surprised how legal ramifications are when keeping people in their boxes and in their lanes. And I've gotten kind of used to that. As anyone here in the room who knows me, I have trouble staying in my lane when there could be more lanes built and more exits and more entrances. So yeah, that's that part. And the second part of the question was?
Sure. How would the city's at-large election system shape the way you engage with and represent the community?
I came here in 1974 lived on campus those first 4 years and then lived in Eugene for a little bit, but I've lived in Springfield 40+ years now. And I've lived in 5 of the 6 wards. Sorry, Thurston, never quite made it out there. So kind of know a little bit about every little neighborhood, and we all have our unique perspectives on how things work. And so I'm sort of used to the whole situation. I also worked for the Housing Authority for 38 years, and if there's a rental on a street, I've been in it and on it. And so I have that sort of unique perspective of how our families struggle and how they succeed on a citywide basis. Oh.
Very good.
Thank you, Steve.
When faced with a complex issue that has multiple possible solutions and varying costs, what process would you use to evaluate the options and select a solution that is both effective and financially sustainable?
Thank you. I mentioned that I was in a union. I still am in a union. I'm in the retirees union for AFSCME, and so I've been paying union dues for over 40 years. And when you're that involved with people and lives and their jobs, for me, it's a lot of brainstorming to find winning solutions. You know, the whole SWOT, what's good, what's bad, what's positive, what's negative, pros and cons. I work with a lot of folks in a lot of variety of ways, and I'm a trained mediator, an arbitrator, and negotiator. And so I like to work through all of that with the folks that are going to be affected by our decisions. And so I use that training that I've had all my life as an adult on how that can come to a good answer to the problems we're facing.
Okay, do you have any questions for us or anything else to add?
What? I don't get the special question? I do not intend to give up Willamette Lane or the Wildish. I turned 70 this year, and I still have the energy of hopefully of a 40-year-old, I'm not quite sure, maybe 35. So I enjoy all the coalitions that I have built in this community. I have a list of them. Hang on one sec. Okay. I have friends on the sub-board and the police board. I've been working with Lane Transit District on the River Road Santa Clara transportation issues, and some of that is also reflective of some issues in Springfield. Springfield Arts Commission, I worked in the library as Friends of for 2 years. I helped my neighborhood get speed bumps and reduce the speed on my street, help with the fire levy. And now I'm working on the local option for Willamette Lane. I have lots of friends in the arts world and allies of Willamette Lane. And of course, I have a lot of connections with unions.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mayor and Council, the last interview is Luke McAllister.
Hello. My notes app, sorry, just to make sure I stay on topic. Can I make a couple comments before we start? Is that okay? Is that allowed?
How about we start with the questions and you fill them in as we go? So since we did it the same way for everybody.
No, that's fine.
All right.
What do you value most about Springfield, and how would that perspective shape your priorities and decisions as a counselor?
You know, I moved to Springfield in 2019. My wife and I did, and we had lived in a number of larger cities. And as I was thinking about this question and reflecting, the word that kept coming to mind was community, right? I have the opportunity to sit here in front of you guys today because of the community that accepted me as an outsider from Des Moines, Iowa, grew up in Astoria, Oregon, right? So I think that, you know, that sense of community is what I really enjoy about Springfield. You know, and so I think as a city councilor, continuing to make sure that that sense of community is there and is accessible for everybody in the community and like easily accessible. I think is important.
Thank you.
Sorry, yeah. A man of few words, my bad, guys.
The council is currently addressing several major issues, including a general fund structural imbalance, economic development in Glenwood and downtown, infrastructure needs, and Eugene Springfield fire governance. Which one or two of these areas would you prioritize? And what specific actions or policy changes would you propose to address them? Separately, are there any new policy ideas or initiatives you believe the council should consider?
Yeah, well, I think the low hanging fruit is the budget, because it's a decision that needs to be started to talk about, like, once the Ward 4 position gets filled, it is like priority number one. But I think when you break down the budget and economic initiatives, they kind of start going hand in hand, right? One solves the other. And so, that being said, it will be a position where it's like we're not going to be able to be like, hey, let's get the Glenwood district up and running to solve our 2027 budget issues. Like, that's really not realistic, but I think it is something that should be a priority. As for individual initiatives, I know there's a lot of talk about the payroll tax. So I think, working once again with like the city manager and understanding what that payroll tax will look like, how it's executed, what the intent is behind putting some guide rails on it to make sure that it's not something that will be detrimental over the long run, because it has the ability to all of a sudden make Springfield very unattractive for businesses of all sizes, small businesses or much larger businesses like International Paper in Roseboro. So I think, once again, understanding it a bit better before a decision is made is really important.
All right. How would you work within the councilor manager form of government to advance your policy priorities? And how would the city's at-large election system shape the way you engage with and represent the community?
So I think just having as much open dialogue as possible is how I would handle the councilor mayor relationship. Once again, getting as many differing opinions as possible, right? Like, I know a lot of people don't like hearing a dissenting opinion or a different opinion, but to me, it allows you the opportunity to take a different approach or to see a different side of things, which means that you could come up with a totally different opportunity or come up with a new solution by, once again, getting a different approach. I am excited at the opportunity, if it presents itself, to take the Ward 4 opening to get to learn more and hear some different views from people. As for the second part of that question, as a local small business owner, I'm already engaged in the community as much as possible. And that's just the nature of being a small business owner, trying to be out there all the time, understanding what the community is wanting and needing. On that note, I'm totally open, if I once again get the opportunity to be the Ward 4 city councilor, I would be open to any feedback where I can do better, where I can engage a community in Springfield or in Ward 4 that I might not have been able to otherwise. So if that opportunity does arise, I would happily get feedback so I can do better.
I'm the last one, so this is the big one. Okay. When faced with a complex issue that has multiple possible solutions and varying costs, what process would you use to evaluate the options and select a solution that is both effective and financially sustainable?
Yeah, so once again, I think gathering as much information as possible is really important in those situations. Once again, hearing the good, bad, and the ugly is important when considering something like that, I will say that in my personal life, once again, being a business owner, it's really like, I always joke around. My wife probably doesn't like when I say it, but it's like plan B is making sure plan A works, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like that decision that's being made, like I have to have weighed as many options as possible. And there's always stuff that you can't consider or might happen. And I think when that happens, it goes back to like accountability. And accountability doesn't need to be like a bad word. I think accountability is like, we made a decision with all the information we had at the time and it just didn't go well. Why didn't it go well? And if we don't want accountability, then we don't ask that last question to help grow and do better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's better.
What questions, do you have any questions for us or is there anything else you want to add?
Well, no, I just did want to start off with a lighthearted joke that I'm a man of few words. And then also too, like, I think Ward 4 is in great hands, like the amount of candidates that we had and the interview that you guys, I wanted to clap after everyone and I know Sean would have got mad at me. So, great job, every candidate. Yeah, made my job hard because I went last and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do a good job on this question? So appreciate that, guys.
All right, thank you. And we're so far on time, we still are 25 minutes ahead of
I
schedule.
know.
Better add one more question and bring everybody in.
All right, so that was the interviews. Your next scheduled for April 20th to do deliberations. And that'll be during a regular session. Do you have any questions of me or anything else?
Any non-deliberation questions for,
I wanted to say something. In the past, selecting counselors over the years, it's been pretty hard to get people to step up and go through the election process. Very few, and some of them have been pretty poor candidates that we've had to deal with. I've never seen so many people from one or more step up to want to be part of the community, and I think it's great that that's happening.
Very cool.
okay, Counselor Buck. I know we all wanted to jump into deliberations because we're just pre-programmed to get stuff done.
No, for you, just kind of a point of process. I know that CJ mentioned, number of things that she's involved with. To my knowledge, none of those are exclusive in the charter, that they wouldn't cause any issues, but with this position. But if you could look into that before deliberations and let us know if there could potentially be one. Like I
That's a great
said,
question. I made it up.
I'm not aware of any, but we should probably know that.
We'll have that information for you on the 20th.
And B, the one thing I had was, I'm expecting we're gonna continue to get public input the next couple of weeks, since there's such a big delay between when we interviewed and where we, when we were going to decide. So if we can just get all of that put into the packet going into that night, that'd be great too.
Okay, so we'll incorporate what we receive up into the packet deadline into the next packet. And then if anything becomes after the deadline, we'll just get that to you in a different way.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Right. The next item is payroll tax ordinance council review and feedback. Nathan Bell.
Ready to go? Okay, good evening, council and mayor. For the record, Nathan Bell, finance director from the city. In tonight's work session, we're looking for feedback on a proposed payroll tax rate, as well as a definition of wages. I have an updated 5-year forecast to provide a context for that conversation. Before we get started on that conversation, though, I'd like to just quickly summarize the conversations that preceded this evening's work session. Going back to January of 2025, the mayor convened a fiscal stability task force to look at the city's general fund finances and make recommendations to address the structural imbalance. They met for 9 consecutive weeks, and out of that came a final report with 9 actionable recommendations. One of those recommendations was a payroll tax. The task force recommended a shared employer and employee payroll tax to generate approximately 2.3 million annually to support the city's general fund. They recommended that it be evenly shared between the employers and the employees, simple to understand and administer, no tiered rates except for legally required exclusions, and guardrails to ensure transparency and accountability. Previous council discussions, so on September 2nd, 2025 in work session, council reviewed a payroll tax structure. In an October 27, 2025 work session, council reviewed a preliminary payroll tax model and 5-year forecast impacts. In a December 8, 2025 regular session, council adopted a resolution directing staff to develop the payroll tax ordinance for council review. And then more recently, in a work session on February 2nd, 2026, council reviewed drafts of a payroll tax ordinance, amendments to the city's municipal code, and the administrative rules framework. At that time, we held off on a rate discussion, recognizing that we needed to consult with the tax attorney on a definition of wages. Subsequently, we brought in Gwen Griffith from the law firm of Tonkin Torp out of Portland, and she's been a great asset as we work through those issues. That brings us to this evening. The goal of tonight's work session is to review a proposed payroll tax rate, a definition of wages, and the impact of that rate on the 5-year forecast. I've included the ordinance and Exhibit A, the amendments to the city's municipal code, as part of your packet. I'm not going to go into them in the same level of detail that I did in the February 2nd work session. I do want to note, though, that the only significant changes to those documents were to include a definition of wages and to tighten up the language around self-employed individuals. And actually, those adjustments are mostly in the Exhibit A. I think the ordinance is pretty similar to the one that you saw on February 2nd. Going straight to the recommended payroll tax rate, staff is recommending that we stay with the original intent of the task force recommendation, which was to keep the rate as low as possible and to generate approximately 2.3 million. The rate that we had talked about in those task force conversations was a rate of 0.1, and that is the rate that we're recommending going forward. That's 0.1% or 0.001. And that's paid by both the employee and the employer. And that rate would generate approximately up to 2.45 million in the first year. And that's if we were to implement that on January 1st, 2027. I say up to approximately 2.4 million we're being pretty ambitious in how we implement this program, recognizing that we need to get this tax in place and working on our general fund as soon as possible. Looking across the freeway to our neighbors, I know that they took over a year to implement their program, and I know that their first year collections came in significantly lower than what they had originally estimated. We're being optimistic with this rate, but recognize there are a lot of assumptions that are going into this. And also recognizing January 1st is now less than 9 months away. We still have to go through the process of a first and second reading. So that's closing the timeframe that we have to do all the public outreach and education to get this program stood up. I can pause for questions, or I can keep moving right into the definition of wages.
Are there any questions at this point? I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions here in a minute.
Okay. So getting to the definition of wages, our original intent was to do gross wages with as few exclusions as possible. When we started working with Gwen, we discovered that it wasn't as easy as we thought it might be. So in working with her and kind of looking for a recommendation and getting as close as we can to those gross wages, she recommended box 1 wages with box 12 deferred compensation added back. So what that means is it would exclude healthcare premiums and Section 125 deductions, which are flexible spending account medical and dependent care contributions. But with the box 12 deferred compensation added back, that's adding back deferred compensation, which is contributions to 401ks, 403s, and 457s. Looking at this as one of the lenses that tax attorneys look at everything as it relates to taxes, and the big issue with taxes is equity. In talking through this as a group, we felt that this provided an equitable approach. The other nice thing is by tying this to federal tax law, there's a lot of case law around this. And so it's much more defendable if we were to have any appeals, especially complex appeals. So at the end of the day, for us, tying it to federal tax law and to the W-2 is it's simple, it's defendable, and it's equitable. All right. Moving on to the 5-year forecast. And here we're going to look at the impact of that payroll tax rate on our 5-year forecast. But I want to start with the first question I think anyone asks when we're looking at a 5-year forecast is, what does this include? What does this not include? So this forecast includes our proposed fiscal year 27 budget. I'm going to point out one exception on there, and that is looking under the fiscal transactions, the transfer to the ambulance fund. That is not reflected in the budget right now, but based on our best estimates, that's what we anticipate a shortfall being in the ambulance fund in fiscal year 27. It's not uncommon for us to not budget that transfer and then to, if we end up having that shortfall, to do a supplemental in the following year to make that fund whole. I can tell you that last year we had a transfer of over $1 million to make the ambulance fund whole. So we're not anticipating that large. I think that was an anomaly, but I think we are now at a period where our general fund is going to be subsidizing our ambulance fund. Otherwise, that's the fiscal year budget, fiscal year 27 budget as we've put it together, and then we've projected on that budget over the outward years. So it includes the recent passage of the fire levy at 53 cents, which goes into effect on July 1st of this year. The levy will now be supporting the full cost of the 5th engine crew, eliminating the subsidy from the general fund. It also includes a $300,000 cut to the library. What it does not include is it does not include any deferred maintenance on city facilities, which is significant and growing. That includes City Hall. It includes our Justice Center, which I think is now approaching 20 years old. And it includes all 5 of our fire stations. And it does not include the financial impact of the new fire governance structure. Those conversations are happening right now. We know that that structure is going to change. We just don't know what it's going to look like. But what we can say is whatever structure it is going to cost more than the current structure that we have. And then I think lastly too, I'd also like to point out that personal services are our largest cost. And we've factored in an inflation factor returning to pre-pandemic levels of inflation. I think as recently as a year ago, there were indicators that that's the direction we were headed. However, in the past month, there's been some events on the global stage that are starting to make us question whether those assumptions are going to hold. If inflation was to pick up again, it could have a serious negative impact on the outer years of this forecast. So before adding the payroll tax in, we're looking in fiscal year 27, a deficit spend of roughly $800,000 and growing from that point forward. Then below that, we have a payroll tax. We're estimating 2 full quarters of collections in fiscal year 27 if we're able to successfully implement as of January 1st, 2027. And then that grows into a full program beginning in fiscal year 28. It results in a surplus in fiscal year 27 of $400,000, a surplus of just under $200,000 in fiscal year 28, but returning to a deficit spend of just over $100,000 in fiscal year 29, growing to almost $600,000 in fiscal year 30, and $1.4 million in fiscal year 31. Now, yes.
I wanted to, if you could please, language is important in this context. And so I think when we're talking about in the case of this forecast and this slide, it does demonstrate a surplus, but like Nathan mentioned, there are significant costs that are not included in here that will probably eat that up. One of the things I'm thinking about immediately is we went to you in the fall about the the facility, the city hall facility and our HVAC units that are, I'm shocked they haven't died. So that's one thing I'm really nervous about, which I know is an imminent expense on us. And also some of the decisions that we're going to be making around how we do fire services as a merged separate entity or separately as two different cities. That's a massive policy change and potentially organizational change. And thirdly, the other thing I'm thinking is I agree with Nathan's assessment about inflation. Looking at if we were to take, for example, the commodities market with oil, asphalt, I was talking with Councilor Stout about this, just the cost of constructing roads, the cost of doing business is already going up, and we know that people are feeling it right now. So I anticipate this is a forecast that we continually look at, even though we bring it to you twice a year. But there are a lot of conditions that can rapidly change. I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Something else I'd like to point out is we talked about one of the guardrails is having a separate fund to handle the accounting for this program. And the plan is then to transfer, it'll be revenue coming in plus the cost of administering the program, netting to the net revenue available, and then transferring over to the general fund as much as needed to just balance the general fund. So when we have years that there's a surplus, that surplus would remain in this fund to help offset future year deficits. So when I look at the surplus from 27 and 28, that could potentially get us through 29 and almost through 30. But then we're back to a deficit without having that extra available to address that. So that's another way I'd like to kind of look at the surplus in the early years. And then lastly, if we look down at the ending cash as a percentage of operating expenditures, in fiscal year 27, it shows us at 28%, which is very healthy. One of the things that we learned when we went out for our last bond issuance and we went through the ratings process with Moody's, we maintained our current rate with them. And we learned a number of things, though. Given a lot of demographics about our community that we cannot change, it will be difficult for us to get that rate any higher than it currently is. So we have an excellent rating. However, there are things that could happen that could cause our rate to decline. And one of the strong things that kept our rate steady was that we had a ending cash balance of greater than 25%. They specifically called out that if our ending fund balance of that ending cash as a percent was ever to dip below 25%, that could result in a decrease in our rating. And what that could result in is increased borrowing cost and future bond issuances. And again, I'm going to pause for any questions.
I think we're going to start having questions as soon as you get to, was this the last slide?
It's not the last slide. It's a good point of conversation.
Well, if this is the last meaty slide, so why don't we
It's the last
go with
meeting.
them? Yeah. Go ahead, Councilor Buffer. You have a question?
I guess I do, but I'm happy to.
No, let's dive in now.
All right, so as we're looking at this, I'm curious, and I think you've answered this when you talk, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the answer. So we don't include the infrastructure costs in the budget. Is that because we don't really know what they are quite yet, or why are they not in there? I know we talked about this before, but I can't remember the answer.
Well, what we would be doing is those would be included is if you think of it more along the lines of is you save for those types of costs in the future. So if you're a homeowner and you know your roof lasts 30 years, then you want to be setting aside dollars over 30 years. So when that day comes again, you've got the funds available to replace your roof. And think about that against any major kind of infrastructure that you have with your home. We should be doing that as well at the city. We should have significant reserves so that we can address a lot of these deferred maintenance needs. A lot of them shouldn't be deferred at this point in time. And I'll be honest, it's hard for me to talk about this because in some ways it feels negligent in the fact that we don't have this in our budget. But we are struggling just to fund our daily operations, let alone save for anything in the future. And that's not unique to us. I think if you're with any city across the state, you would hear the same thing.
And then, so the part about using a payroll tax as a solution. And again, this is something that's been talked about, but I want to make sure that I'm understanding it clearly. And if I'm not, somebody will correct me now. It's a tool that we want to implement so that it's there, not to necessarily increase the rate, but increase the tax base. As we want to attract more businesses, bring more businesses into the community, that's how we're going to get more leverage out of this tool, as opposed to kind of looking at it as something like, well, let's look at the rate, periodically. Our goal here is let's look at the tax base. Let's bring businesses in here. Let's increase payroll. Let's increase that revenue so that the percentage stays the same, but the benefit rises.
So right now, we have a lot of our eggs in the basket of the payroll tax. We have compression, and then we have the fact that it's collared at 1%. So what this does is it diversifies our revenue portfolio. We now have another revenue stream that behaves differently, could behave similarly in some circumstances, but differently in others. Hopefully, wages, I think historically, what we found over the last 10 years have grown at 4.1%, which is higher than what our property taxes have been growing at, which I think has been at around 3.3%. So, and then I think the last thing is that when you look at your base of taxpayers, right now it's all going at the homeowners. One of the things that we've learned, especially with Eugene implementing a payroll tax, is we have a significant number of people who live in Springfield, but work in Eugene and pay that payroll tax in Eugene. Likewise, I think we've put numbers in front of you that to the tune of 70% of the workforce working in Springfield is coming from outside of Springfield. They don't pay property taxes in Springfield, yet they enjoy the benefits of having our police, our fire and rescue. And so this is just a way to, I think, diversify the base and have a more equitable kind of demographic of paying those taxes.
Okay, other questions? Councilor Stout. Quick one. We talk about not wanting to lose our high rating with Moody's. I'm curious, we're talking about some of these deferred maintenance costs, and it's possible we may have to borrow to do those things. I'm just curious, would there be a meaningful increase in the overall cost of those improvements when we're trying to borrow from a bank at a slightly lower rating that we have currently? Is that a meaningful?
I can't quantify it for you on the spot,
For sure.
but when you look at, typically when you go out and do a GO bond and you're looking at borrowing 30, 40, $50 million over 20 years, yes, 0.5% can have a significant impact in terms of what you pay.
You would expect possibly 0.5% as much difference, or we're not sure yet?
I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
I may add to that. I would say that given the scale of capital projects with cities tend to be fairly large, especially, if we were trying to do a significant improvement or structure, then you are looking at a larger borrowings. But also, just in my profession as city manager, one of the things that is an indicator of the overall health, fiscal health of a city is their bond rating. So that's something that when you look at the annual comprehensive financial report, and then also the bond rating, it paints a picture about how well the city is being run in general. So that's something that I pay attention to.
Right.
Just a clarifying question and just to make sure that we're continuing to have this conversation publicly and just be very clear. When we say proposed budget FY 27, what time frame is that? It's July 1.
That is July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027.
Okay.
So that is 3 months away.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we understand what that time frame is, but also as we're talking about this and getting ready to enter the budget conversation, these are two different conversations, right? The budget conversation we're getting ready to have and this conversation are not tied together and directly, right?
Not directly. So what we're really trying to address is our long-term fiscal sustainability. We don't want to be back here next year or even 3 years from now saying, okay, we're back in the same place. We need to do something. That was something we heard from the task force, and I can just say for us personally, it's hard to do business when every year you're just kind of fighting these deficits and just kind of death by a thousand cuts. So we're focused on long-term fiscal sustainability. The budget process is typically looking at just a year, that's part of that longer term, but looking at proposed services for that particular year. And Nancy, if you want to. Okay.
So it's even though we have a 5-year forecast, nothing is solid, like it's guesstimates on, with a lot of factors that we don't know about yet. So just keeping that in mind as we're talking through this, that we know that these are numbers that we don't necessarily guarantee are accurate at 6 months from now.
Correct.
Right, that's just our best guess.
Yeah, and they could be worse, or they could be better.
Yes, sorry, so I think that's something that is of concern to me as we've talked about guardrails on this, the rate that we want to set. And the problem is we began this conversation through no fault of your own by talking about the uncertainty that we have. We don't know what's going to happen with materials costs, all these different costs, fire governance, everything that's going on with this. I'm struggling when I see some of these long-term conversations say, hey, we're back here, but now we have kind of like this hybrid promise of keeping this rate the same, but also we have these major expenses coming down the pike. I'm very concerned about, I don't want us to get, married to a certain rate per se. I mean, I'm more just making a comment than asking a question on a current rate, unless I know kind of what's the guardrails on a budget level? How bad could it be with fire, with materials, with capital outlay, and versus how good could it be? I think I think there's an evolving conversation we have to have, because as we've mentioned, we really don't have a lot more levers we can pull in order to generate a diversified revenue stream for the city.
Yeah, I mean, the thing too is one thing I can say with certainty is how bad things could be or how good things could be. We're going to see those kind of fluctuations in the short term from year to year. Sometimes the property tax revenues kind of just surprise me. Sometimes we carry a number of vacancies and we have a lot of fiscal savings, and that just kind of really shores up our reserves. So we can have a good year. What we can say with certainty is that under the structure of Measure 5 and 50, we are always losing ground. And so what we're trying to come up with is short-term solutions, and you could say that's what's happening in any single given budget year in the budget process. Midterm solutions, I think that this would qualify as a midterm solution. And then we have long-term solutions. We're trying to bridge ourselves to the long term. One of the ways that we can have a long-term solution is through growing our AV, our assessed value. And we have other programs that we're actively working on. So we're trying to balance all this together. We recognize that the public is not a, kind of open wallet that we can just, they're like all of us are, just struggling with the inflation of the times and the high cost of housing in this community. We know that other agencies are also going out for additional revenues, and we're trying to balance all that together and make the best decision possible to shore up our finances without overwhelming the public, maintaining our service levels to the best of our ability.
So is the proposed fiscal year 27 budget public yet? Like, are you guys still polishing it out?
It is a big document. So even though we got the numbers entered into our budgeting software, then we have to convert that into a document. The plan is to have that on our website on April 20th.
And if I was the public and I was looking at this slide, right, the column that's proposed fiscal year 27, those are the assumptions that are roughly built into the budget that we're going to see in budget committee.
Everything is identical to what you'll see, with the exception of the one line item I mentioned, the transfer to the ambulance fund, that $350,000. We didn't budget for that, but we anticipate it.
So when you think about the proposed fiscal year 27 budget, are we going to be asked to adopt a budget that effectively has an $800,000 deficit in it? Or are we assuming revenue from a payroll tax yet?
We have not put any revenue from a payroll tax in there as of yet. So it'd be the 800 minus the 350. We will be adopting a budget with a $450,000 deficit.
Okay, so our starting point when but to Councilor Weber's point is these are kind of two separate conversations. We're working the payroll tax conversation. And as we get more information, we're going budget off of what's real at this point and wrap in the payroll tax conversation as it becomes more real.
Yes.
So the other question that I have is when I look at the payroll tax progression, how certain do you feel in that progression? I know you're making a lot of assumptions about timing and when receipts hit. Should we feel like that number is a relatively conservative assumption, or is that a relatively aggressive assumption?
Well, I think the first year is that's the fiscal year 27 that we implement, and we're stood up and we bring in that 1.2 million. That's I think an ambitious assumption.
Okay.
But by the time we get out to fiscal year 28, we will have a full year's program stood up in place and revenue coming in. I want to say close to that number. So the 27 number could be less, but I don't see us, given the time frame, not achieving a full 28 implementation.
And when you discussed the not included column, the deferred maintenance and fiscal impact of the new fire government structure, should I be thinking about that is a couple $100,000 or is that completely unknown, or is it bigger than the Titanic? Are those multi-million-dollar sort of cliffs that are out there, or are they a couple $100,000?
For the impact of the new fire governance structure, I can comfortably say that there's probably roughly 2 structures that we will land at, and neither structure is less than $1 million more annually, and it's not in this budget.
Added to the budget.
Added to this budget.
Okay.
And then deferred maintenance, that's bigger than.
The last question that I had, or when I look at this and I think about this from a long-term perspective, if we backed up a year ago, the cliff would have been basically this year, right? And we've now effectively moved the cliff in 4 years out and get to buy us some time. From a policy perspective, am I reading this right? That's saying maybe the next big, like after we deal with fire, the next big conversation really is around assumptions around the ambulance fund and essentially street maintenance, right? Because of those huge transfers.
I'm going to look to Nancy on the order.
Thank you. I think fire is going to be an outstanding issue as well as the ambulance fund, and it's a larger issue. It's been a county-wide conversation, and I know that Lane County is having a separate conversation about the provision of ambulance services. But what we do know is that we do not recover the costs of providing that service at the level that is set at. It's a federal appropriation that's set, and we know that is too low. So we're losing money based on the mix of patients that you're bringing in, and we don't want to necessarily deep dive, but just trust me when I tell you that it's not looking good. And I think we've shown that, we've demonstrated that in our budget historically. That's why we're obviously, we can't put in, when you have something coming in as a supplemental budget that in the past fiscal year was $1 million, I think it's a little disingenuous not to show something in our projected forecast, because that's just a $1 million hit that we're not showing you up front. And so if we have some sort of reasonable knowledge, then I think that we need to show that. The other part of that is, our issues kind of beyond our control, right? So for instance, the state transportation funding, that was kind of a political hot topic in the Oregon legislature. And, there are various iterations of that. That has a direct impact on us. We've already made a reduction going forward into this budget in the street fund. You don't see it here because we're talking about the general fund, right? But the net result means that there will be less ability for us to do street upkeep and maintenance because those funds are already reduced. We've already put that in the budget because we know that those state dollars are not forthcoming right now.
Other questions? I think we can safely say, right, that like good fiscal stewardship and fiscal discipline will be, you know, on the conversation topic for many years to come. I do appreciate the fact that we're starting to look 5 years out and talk about what we can do and how we can either trim, adjust, deal with the budget in a broader sense, so it doesn't feel so year to year. And I think the commitment that we've talked about from a guardrail perspective, and then we'll swing back to Nate to make sure that we've given him direction on things that we're comfortable with, has been that we were gonna have some sort of conversation in that 3-year window, which would be, you know, roughly in the fiscal year 29 to fiscal year 30, we'd be potentially talking about what the program looks like long term.
Mayor, if I may,
Sure.
one final thing on addressing the structural imbalance is that one thing that we've done a lot of research around this. We had Portland State review our entire budget. You remember that report that was presented to the mayor's task force. We hired Echo Northwest to help us with all of our data modeling and our projections. So, you know, these numbers have been vetted, not just internally, but also externally. We know that the sooner we can make course corrections to the good to help our fiscal sustainability, the better the impact it will have, right? So if you know you need to save $1 that you save today is worth $5, 3 years from now. You know what I mean? Like just the value of the dollar. So the sooner we can course correct and try to make decisions around the fiscal strength of the organization, the better. And I know that these are difficult decisions, but that there is a timeliness element to them as well.
Let's rock.
You know, one of the things I just want to kind of put out there is I really appreciate the amount of support that we as council and the city have gotten from the business community around this, recognizing this is a challenge that we all have to tackle together. How can we be collaborative in doing so? I know the chamber has been instrumental in those conversations, and just really recognizing that there are not really short-term solutions, it's the long-term problem. And, you know, and likewise, us understanding their concern that this isn't the fix-all, right? This isn't, okay, we have a payroll tax and we can go to that rate or those kind of things. Like this is just part of a solution. And I really appreciate how supportive our business community has been in coming to the table with those things and engaging with us on how can we solve this together. It's not really felt like our problem versus not our problem. This is everybody's issue to tackle. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the collaboration we've gotten.
Okay, Nate, do we have questions that we have to answer for you? I know we've kind of had a lot of our questions answered, but is there something specific you need for direction on the 20th?
Yes, so I need direction on a rate. If you're comfortable with a rate of 0.1, 0.1% paid by both the employee and the employer, and then a definition of wages that would be box 1 plus box 12 deferred comp added back as our definition of wages. Those are the two questions we need answered to bring you back a ordinance and exhibit A for that first reading and public hearing.
Is box 1 plus the deferred comp the easiest and simplest answer?
I can't say that's the easiest, simplest definitively, but it is an easy, simple answer. Yes. You know, when we arrived at that, as we were working through things and I threw out the box 1, I can see that Gwen was like, oh, that's great. That's easy. So if that's worth anything.
Okay, so what do people think about the definition of wages?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay,
And I can add one more thing
Sure.
to that. You know, one of the things I also heard is do something that's already being done locally. And the only things we have to point out locally for a payroll tax are City of Eugene and the state transit tax. The state transit tax doesn't include self-employed individuals, so we run into does not. So we run into an equity issue there. And then the City of Eugene's is a very complex payroll tax. And so no matter what we do, it will be unique. The thing is, we've reached out to payroll processing companies, to software companies, and, we've talked to them about what it would take to program this, and all of them have kind of basically said we can do it in 3 months or less. So this will be easy for them to program.
So now the question is about the rate. And then I'm sure we're gonna talk about next steps because when the hearing is, it's gonna be a question people that are sitting behind me are gonna have people comfortable with their sending that rate to public hearing. Remember, that's the proposal. We'll take public input and then finalize everything.
I'll just jump in. I'm comfortable with that rate. Where I'm not 100% comfortable is really the guardrail on being able to adjust that rate because of all the uncertainties we may have in the future. That said, if we're only talking 3 fiscal years, being able to, I can tolerate that rate for 3 fiscal years. It's when we get to years 4 and 5 that I get scared, where I'm like, okay, we need to really reassess things. But based on your projections, I'm okay with that rate for the 3 years time.
So if I repeated it back to, so you're okay going forward with the rate, assuming that we have some sort of discussion about what we need long-term in after 3 fiscal years.
Yeah, because even though we're already starting towards the red, and I know that that's not the perfect picture there, I think there's so much information we just cannot know that being able to have that, and obviously we can if there is a true emergency, there's a true emergency, but there's stuff we just can't know in order for us to pretend. It's too much hubris to think we can predict the future, and so we just have to continue to iterate and ask the question. And so I think if I'm expressing a discomfort, it's just a matter of not being able to course correct quickly enough. And I think that's the one thing where I want to be respectful to what the task force did and came up with, but at the same time, recognize just what might be necessary for our local governments. So, but otherwise, I'm okay with rate 1 as a starter rate.
Okay, this might be a good time to just quickly revisit the guardrails because I think it addresses your concerns. These guardrails are important to the task force, as well as we've been hearing feedback from the larger community. The guardrails that we've put in there is the rates established by council adopted ordinance, which means it's going to take an ordinance, council adopted ordinance to change. No rate increases or structural changes for 3 years. Required annual reporting to council and the public. Revenues budgeted and accounted for in a separate fund, and then a formal program review after year 3.
I think I can get behind that with that, but because it is uncomfortable all the way around as opposed to uncomfortable on just one side.
I absolutely appreciate everything that you said, Councilor Stott, and I think that those are very important things to keep in mind. And I think that sticking with whatever rate we choose for 3 years, I mean, my hope is it gives us that flexibility. I also feel at the same time, like the rate we've been talking about, the rate that, has been out there, that the public has given us feedback on is the rate that we had on the screen tonight of 0.1% from the employer side. And so I'm not comfortable changing that now, since we've talked about that all the way along. I feel like that almost is, it just doesn't feel, it wouldn't feel right to change that now. So I feel like since we've talked about that and that's been the number that we've been using and we've gotten to a place where we're comfortable with it, I feel like we have to see what that rate is like going into the proposal. I wouldn't want to see a change, not that it would be the last minute, but I wouldn't want to see us get up to this point and say, okay, we're going to switch that right now. I mean, that just wouldn't feel right to me.
Councilor Weller.
So I agree, the 0.1% is a starting point. I share the concerns about the long-term challenges that we face. But I really do want to Councilor Buck's point, thank the business community and the chamber for sharing with us where the business community is on this. We understand from that that 0.1% is supported by them, and I think it's really important that we remember that as we're moving this thing forward, and that this is not, at whatever rate we set today is not a fix-all for all of the other challenges that we have. So I'm comfortable with 0.1 for the 3 years.
Councilor Mo, you're good? Pardon?
I'm against it in the long run, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay. I think we've got given enough direction here. The other piece that I'm really conscientious of, right, is we keep using the term comfortable, right? And I've having talked to the community about this for a year, there's a lot of people very uncomfortable right now. And I think we need to be thankful that people are going along on this journey with us as we start to sort this thing out. It is not easy. It's got impacts on a couple of different fronts that are not far from my thoughts. I think the thing that I keep thinking about when I look at this from a 5-year perspective is there is another clear and serious conversation out there that is this may be involved with as a tool. And my willingness to go on with the 0.1% doesn't mean that some of those needs don't need to get met eventually in the long term. I think I recognize that we're going to get one more good conversation with the community about this. And with the amount of significant needs we have, especially around fire, we need to make sure that there's enough tools on the table to work the community where it needs to be successful in the long term. So when I think about 5 years from now, I really am thinking that this is going to turn into another serious conversation. There's a very clear reminder outside of fire, there are a bunch of levers on there, including work that we do around streets, including work we do around ambulances, that we're going to continue to have to work on to make sure that the city's in a good fiscal place. So I think, do you have enough direction or
I do. All right, so next steps, we've scheduled a public hearing and first reading for April 2026 regular session, and then a second final reading at the May 18th, 2026 regular session.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We are adjourned. We are going to all make our way over to the council chambers in the next 10 minutes for regular session.
Welcome, everybody. I know we've got a lot of folks here this evening. There's a couple seats still up front if you're looking for a spot. Okay, I'm going to call the Springfield City Council regular session to order with roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon.
Here.
Councilor Weber.
Here.
Councilor Mo.
Here.
Councilor Rodley. Councilor Buck.
Here.
And Councilor Stout.
Here, thank you. Councilor Rodley is excused for the evening. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and the republic
There are 2 designated times for public testimony this evening under public hearings and business from the audience. If you're attending in person, please complete the request to speak card located at the front of the council chambers and turn them into the city recorder. If you're joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak at either of those times, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. The order of public testimony is as follows: anyone in person in the council chambers, and then anyone who has raised their virtual hand. First item, please.
First item is one of 3 items under Springfield Upbeat. Item number 1 is the Thurston High School State Champion Boys Wrestling Team and Boys Swim Team.
Ooh, do we have any of the swimmers here? Come on up. Well, we're going to have the team hang out in the back. We're going to let your coach make a couple of comments about, just come up right up here, and then we'll have you guys up. If you want to sit down and at the microphone. Yeah, but we have people virtually. You want them to be excited about wrestling online too, right? Okay. Hit the button.
There we go. This is our 2026 boys state championship wrestling team. It's been a pretty good spell since we've won a state title as a boys team. 2002 was the last state championship, so this was a big deal for this group right here. Fairly young team. Most of them will be returning next year, losing a few of them, so we're probably have a bullseye on us to get knocked off by other teams next year. So it's been an outstanding group this year, and we appreciate you guys inviting us to downtown here, City Hall, and meeting you guys. And it's neat for the kids to see this and be a part of something this big, something that we'll remember forever. So.
What was your best memory of the whole season?
Oh, the whole season. There was too many of them. Yeah, it was a great season. We won just about every major tournament that we competed in. We beat just about every team in the state at all levels, 6A all the way down, and we're in the 5A division. And I know this group of young men, our girls team has been pretty successful over the years. They've won 6 state championships, and I know it's been chipping away at these guys to get back up on top, and here they are, and I know they want to defend their title, and it's neat for them. And the coolest thing for me as a coach is they're scholar athletes as well. It's a really great academic group, probably the best academic group that we've had in a long time, and that pays off. Obviously, if you're good academically, you're going to do good on the wrestling mat as well. So
good. Anybody else want to? Go ahead, Councilor Stout.
As your Thurston city councilor, I can't tell you how proud I am of you guys. Great work. Amazing job. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. It inspires the whole community, especially Thurston, but the whole community. So cheers.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate you having us here.
Councilor Buck.
Yeah, I'm super proud of you guys as well. You guys' neighbor over there in Ward 5. My daughter is a Colt this year as a freshman. So I'm super excited for you guys, and I'm even more excited for what's to come, because I think the future is just as bright as it was this last year. I mean, I don't know what it was like for you on day one when you're like, okay, how's this going to look this season? But I think that with greater expectations, just screams greater opportunity. So congratulations. Well done, Colts.
Thank you.
And I gotta say, Steph, too, we're super proud of you. Like across the community, I think there was a lot of excitement when we started to see it reported in the news. And I know that your Thurston community is behind you as well. Before we have you guys up and have a picture, Elise, do you think we are all going to fit in the wall here, or do we have to divide this thing up? I'm going to defer to a professional public information officer here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, come on, Cal.
All of us. Let's go. All of us.
You guys gotta go all the way over here. Come on, all the way over there. All right, come on. All right.
We're gonna need 2 rows, at least 2 rows, and come in at least 3 feet in from each side. Yeah.
Get the wide angle leg.
One, two, three. Pulse. Yay! Congratulations.
All right. We'll get another one next one.
All right, next item, please.
Mayor, the next item is Springfield update number 2. It's Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation.
All right, I have a proclamation to read, and then we have folks here to take a quick picture, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Whereas our community's most valuable and vulnerable members and their safety, well-being, and ability to thrive are fundamental to the health and future of our city. Whereas child abuse and neglect are serious public health issues that can have lifelong impacts on a child's physical, emotional, and mental health well-being, as well as lasting effects on families and communities. Whereas Kids First, Lane County's Child Advocacy Center, which provides intervention and advocacy for children who are victims of abuse, saw an approximately 800 cases of child abuse from July 2024 to June 2025. Whereas preventing child abuse requires a collective commitment to strengthening and caring for children and ensuring that caregivers have access to resources, education, and support. Whereas April is recognized nationally as Child Abuse Prevention Month, a time to raise awareness and encourage community engagement and reaffirm our shared responsibility to protect children and support families. I, Sean Van Gordon, Mayor of Springfield, proclaim April 2026 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month and encourage all residents, organizations, businesses, and leaders to join in efforts to promote the safety and well-being as well as healthy development of all children. I believe we have somebody from Kids First here. Okay, next item, please.
Your final Springfield update this evening is the Fair Housing Month proclamation. Mayor, this is your item as well.
I've got a couple of bullet points that the Fair Housing Council shared, and then I'm going to read just the the final proclamation. Stephen Crawford from the Fair Housing Council of Oregon is here this evening to accept this proclamation. The Fair Housing Council of Oregon is Oregon's only independent nonprofit dedicated to ensuring ending housing discrimination in the state of Oregon. And if folks would like to learn more about your fair housing rights this Fair Housing Month, please visit the Fair Housing Council of Oregon's website, where there's live courses that happen every day this month for free. So I'll read this real quick. Whereas April 2026 marks the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Federal Fair Housing Act under the Civil Rights Act of 1968. Whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, or financing of housing. Whereas Fundamentally, fair housing means that every person has the right to live where they choose, free from housing discrimination and hostility. Whereas the city of Springfield is committed to equal opportunity and affirmatively furthers fair housing, I, Sean Van Gordon, the mayor of Springfield, declare April 2026 to be Fair Housing Month and encourage all citizens and residents to learn about their rights and responsibilities under the Fair Housing Act and reaffirm their commitment to creating equal opportunity in this community. Okay, next item, please.
Next item is the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Neil, could you call a vote, please?
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo,
Yes.
Counselor Rodley, Counselor Buck,
Yes.
and Counselor Stout.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes. 4 yeses, 0 nos, 1 absence. Next item, please.
You have 3 public hearings this evening. Public hearing number 1 is the liquor license endorsements for the renewal period of 2026 through 2027, and Robin Holman is here for this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Robin Holman with the Development and Public Works Department. Tonight marks our annual review of liquor license renewals. A total of 185 businesses licensed through the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission are anticipated for renewal. Liquor licenses within the city are governed by our Springfield Municipal Code, Section 7.3 through 7.304. This section of code included in your packet outlines the review criteria. One of the criteria evaluated is police activity with licensed establishments. I would like to thank our police department for their assistance in preparing the detailed report. According to the report, call volume has decreased compared to the same time period as last year. No other concerns have been identified. Therefore, following a public hearing, staff recommends that the council provide a favorable motion of approval for the liquor license renewals.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. I do not have any cards for this item. Neil, do we have anybody online?
We have no hands for this item.
All right, I close the public hearing.
I move to approve the staff recommendation to the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission, OLCC.
Second.
Neil, could you call the vote?
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo,
Yes.
Counselor Rodley, Counselor Buck,
Yes.
and Counselor Stout.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes. 4 yeses, 0 nos, 1 absence. Next item, please.
Next item is your second public hearing. It's an annexation of territory to the city of Springfield and the Lane Park and Recreation District, annexing 1.94 acres of R1 residential property located at map 18-02-05-24, tax lot 06100, withdrawing the same territory from Willackenzie Springfield Rural Fire Protection District. This is just a first reading and no action is required. Tom Severs is here for this item.
Before you hear the staff report, the city attorney will provide a statement regarding the procedures for the night.
Thank you, Mayor. The hearing tonight is characterized as a quasi-judicial hearing. This means that the applicant and the public are entitled to certain rights in this process. These rights include the rights to notice, to present evidence, and to have a written decision based upon standards, and to also have an impartial decision maker. Any person with an interest in this annexation and withdrawal from the Willackenzie Rural Fire Protection District may offer relevant oral or written testimony or both.
If you want the city council to consider your testimony and to preserve your right to appeal the decision to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, you must testify orally or in writing to the city council before the council closes the record. You must raise an issue clearly enough so people can understand what it is and offer evidence in support of it, or else you cannot raise that issue on appeal at the Land Use Board of Appeals. If you're the applicant, you must raise concerns about any of the conditions of approval clearly enough to allow the city council to respond to preserve your right to seek damages in circuit court. If you feel you need more time to prepare evidence or testimony for the city council, you can ask the council to hold the record open or continue the hearing, but you must make that request before they close the public portion of the hearing. Please make sure your testimony is related to the applicable criteria of approval. Criteria for annexation is in the Springfield Development Code, Section 5.14.135. They're described in more detail in the staff report posted in tonight's packet and will be summarized by staff in the presentation. The criteria for withdrawal from special districts is Development Code Section 5.7160, whether the withdrawal is in the best interest of the city. Last, Oregon land use law requires that the city council act as an impartial decision maker. Councilors must disclose any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest related to this matter. A conflict of interest is a situation in which the decision maker or their family or business would benefit or suffer by the decision maker's decision. And an ex parte contact is a communication to the decision maker that includes substantive issues regarding the application and occurs outside of the public venue. Bias is an actual personal interest in the outcome of a decision or a prejudgment by the decision maker as to the outcome without regard to the evidence and arguments submitted. Mayor, please query the council about any ex parte contact and state any you have as well.
Councilor Mel, could we start with you to declare any ex parte contact or potential biases?
I have no ex parte contact.
All right. I have no ex parte contact or no conflicts of interest.
No ex parte contact or conflicts of interest.
No ex parte contact or conflicts of interest.
No ex parte contact or conflicts of interest.
All right. I think we are ready for the staff report.
All right, good evening, Mayor and councilors. I'm Tom Sievers, Senior Planner with the current planning section. Tonight, the council is requested to consider an ordinance to annex an approximately 1.94 acre area that includes one tax lot in South Springfield. This is a first reading of this item. Sorry. Sorry about that. All right. So more specifically, the proposed annexation area is highlighted in yellow and is currently improved with a single unit dwelling. The applicant is the property owner. The site is zoned R1 residential with the urbanizable fringe UF10 overlay, seen here by the opaque hatched shading. As you can see by the orange dashed line, it is contiguous to the city limits along the southern, eastern, and western boundaries. If annexation is approved, no other zoning changes are requested except for the removal of the UF10 overlay. With annexation, the subject property will be removed from special districts, such as the UF10 overlay, depicted here by the absence of the opaque shading, and removal from service areas such as the Willikinzie-Springfield Rural Fire Protection District. Again, no other zoning changes will occur with this application. There are 4 approval criteria for annexations in the Springfield Development Code, which were fully analyzed in the staff report and summarized as follows. Criterion A, within UGB and contiguous to the city limits. As previously stated, the subject property is contiguous to the city limits along its southern, eastern, and western boundaries. The subject territory is within the city's urban growth boundary and is currently covered by the urbanizable fringe overlay. Criterion B, consistent with policies of the Springfield Comprehensive Plan and Metro Plan. Policies 27, 29, 33, 34, and 35 of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan's urbanization element are met through this application, as the annexed land will be fully within the Springfield urban service area. Criterion C, within boundary for a minimum level of key urban facilities to be received in a timely and efficient manner. Policies 29, 31, and 32 of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan's urbanization element are met through this application as well. If annexation is approved, the subject territory can easily obtain key facilities and services from the South 43rd Street and South 43rd Place rights-of-way. These facilities and services will include sanitary sewer connection, sub-water and electric service, fire protection services from the Eugene Springfield Fire Department, and police services from the Springfield Police. The subject site is not currently within the service area of the Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District, but will be brought into the district upon approval of the annexation. Lastly, criterion D, annexation agreement. An annexation agreement has already been signed by the applicant. The agreement covers obligations for the applicant and for the city, including any financial responsibilities. The agreement includes details on future connection to key urban facilities and services within the and withdrawal from special service districts. If the annexation is approved by City Council at the second reading, which we are shooting for April 20th on that one, then the agreement will be ready for execution by the city manager. Because all applicable annexation criteria have been met and the annexation will help facilitate future residential development, staff recommends that this application be considered for approval. Thank you all, and I'm here for any questions you have.
Counselor Stone.
I have one grammar question, which is on your agreement on page 6, library services, just the use of the word while. I might suggest since in that case, but then above that, I'm curious about our water policy. Will the site continue to use its on-site well? And how is that? Just tell me in a quick nutshell, what is our current policy as far as wells on site and when we get when we annex a property into there?
Yeah, so annexing implies that it will be served by urban facilities. The well specifically at this property is a relic that was serving that site, up until this point. So once the annexation is approved, we can have extend water lines to that area. Obviously, one well is not going to serve the residential development that will be occurring there, so that will cease to exist upon approval of annexation.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. I don't have any cards for this item. Neil, do we have anybody hands online?
No hands for this item.
All right, I close the public hearing, and this is first reading only. No actions required. So next item, please.
Next item is business from the audience.
Okay, it's gonna take us a minute to get organized, so just be patient, please. Okay. No, we have 18 cards. So we need to chat about, because it's agended for 20 minutes. So we need to chat about if we're gonna allow additional time. Given that it's 18 cards, my recommendation would be that maybe we go at 45 minutes and then check in to see how many more cards that we have left. Can I take that as head nods, or do we need a?
The operating policies say it's a decision by the presiding officer or a council vote. So I think you can make put on the record that you're going to extend the time for business from the audience to 45 minutes. And do you still want people to speak to 3 minutes, or do you want to reduce that time too?
I think we can let people speak up to 3 minutes. I have a feeling, given the size of the cards and that it's around a swath of topics, that people will do their best to be concise and, and fold in it, similar information.
Okay, and then 2 more procedural aspects would be not to forget the folks who are online, and perhaps when you have 10 minutes left of the 45 to switch to online to make sure you don't have anyone who is appearing online tonight who wants to testify, and then to make sure that the audience knows that there are alternative ways to testify for the council. There'll be another regular session on April 20th with more opportunity for business from the audience. And then people can always email the council to the CMO email address or the city councilor's email address.
Yes, and also I know that this is this is a budget item. We have budget committee coming up. Do we have the dates?
May 4th, 5th, and 6th.
So each one of those days, we will take public comment around the budget process. Neil, how many folks do we have with hands on upright?
Currently 2.
Okay, so I think that is a good idea to wait for 35 minutes, and then we will check and see if we can't switch to the online folks to make sure that they get in. Second thing I would like to do, the first, I don't know, after about the first 3 cards, it really does switch to the library. I thought it might be helpful if I just turn it over to the city manager for a couple of minutes to just share some of the things that's been going on the last couple of weeks is grounding for this before we start into the public testimony. So with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate everybody being here tonight, and I want to give a little bit of context about the process around decision-making with respect to our upcoming budget. I think there has been perhaps some misinformation online, so I want to really clarify what the process is for tonight. Earlier this evening, the council had a work session around the general fund forecast, and that's something we do every year. The council receives this presentation twice a year. And so there's a number of factors that go into creating that forecast, one of which is including, we're close to having our budget time with our budget committee. So trying to get close to real-time numbers, we included what would likely be projected for what we present to the budget committee. It's a starting point. So what my job is as city manager is I work with all of our departments. I meet with them prior to the budget, and then I work with our finance department. We look at a lot of factors, one of which is the general fund projections, but we also look at other issues such as state funding. Sometimes there's federal funding that gets passed down to cities, not as often. That happens more with counties, but it can come into play. So we take all of those things into consideration, as well as all of the services that the city provides, roads, public safety, certainly the library, and some of our internal services. We have already made some cuts going in or thinking about going into this next budget year that haven't been made public yet because they simply aren't part of the general fund. The general fund is the part of the budget where the council has the more discretion. Some of the other funds that we received are what are called dedicated revenues, and they can only be spent for a certain purpose. I'll give an example. In the legislative session this past year, there was a lot of discussion around transportation funding statewide, and that has a direct impact on how much money cities receive to build and maintain roads. That was kind of a hot topic in the legislature, and it did result in a reduction in funding for our road fund. So we've already accounted for that in our budget. You just aren't aware of it because it wasn't part of the general fund discussion. So what that ultimately means is that we will have less capacity to build and maintain roads because of those cuts that were made on the state level. So part of my job is to produce a balanced budget every year. We're required to do that. All local government is, including the state. And then that budget then is given to our Citizen Budget Committee. Oregon is unique. There's not a lot of, I'm not aware of any other state that has the same kind of structure that we do with regard to budget law. So in Oregon, there are we have an equal number of Citizen Budget Committee members to council members that review and then make comments or recommendations, and then hopefully approve a budget to then move forward to the governing body. During this process, we do both the city's budget and CEDA's budget, which is the Springfield Economic Development Agency. We do that over a 3-year period, and on each evening, there's opportunity for public input. We have that on all 3 nights. And then finally, when that process is done, it then goes to the council for another look and another conversation with the public. I spent part of my career in Sacramento County, and when I went to California and told them about Oregon's budget law, they all kind of looked at me bewildered because they're just kind of used to making a budget and taking it to the elected officials and you're kind of done. And I said, well, that's not really how we do things in Oregon, and we have a lot of process, and we that's something that Oregonians truly value. I'm an Oregonian. I think my brief stint in California doesn't yet disqualify me. So that's the process that we do. And then, you know, the forecast that came into play for this, you know, we had to make a decision as staff. We try to, when we have a presentation to council, bring them the most up-to-date information that we possibly can to help them inform their decision making. And it is just in close proximity to when we're going to be having our budget meetings. So those meetings will be happening early next month. And we get the materials out well in advance of that for our budget committee so that they have the opportunity to go through those. They're all volunteers as well. So it takes them a while to go through the materials. So when those are available to the budget committee, that's when that is also available to the public and to our council. There's been some discussion around potential layoffs. Those are things that I really feel are not appropriate to have in a public meeting because we are talking about HR type of information. Employees in our city, most of them are represented by labor unions. And so there's some guidelines around that. And again, I think the key word on this is that this is a proposed budget. So for me to say that this is exactly what's going to happen, I would have to be able to predict the future, which I haven't been able to do. So bear that in mind. And I understand that it is a difficult and challenging conversation, and I recognize that. The budget is something I track all year. It's very important to me, and I know it's very important to our community. And I will say, in terms of the library, and I appreciate you coming out here, as it's something that I've been very reluctant to cut since coming as city manager here. The few things that I have the ability to really direct, that's part of the general fund. So understand that when I am proposing something to be considered by the budget committee and then the council, I have to come up with something for them a starting place. So we give them a proposal. That's part of my job in coordination with the department directors. That proposal goes for further deliberation with the community budget committee. And then again, for further deliberation, and these are all public meetings, with the city council. So I hope that gives you some understanding about the context of this information and how this is really a proposal that we're working on currently. Thank you.
Okay, I have 2 quick clarifying questions here. So when you say proposal, it really is that we're at the stage of you're proposing a budget to the budget committee.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the place that we're going to have a hearing about that budget and proposal and weigh all this potential service impacts in public is the budget committee that is in. And Mary Bridget, you just told me the dates.
It's May 4th, Mayor.
Thank
if
you.
You're a Star Wars nerd, just remember it's May the 4th be with you.
Okay, so we will hear that those 3 days with the citizens, and then we will have a scheduled public meeting to adopt the budget at some point before the end of the fiscal year.
That's correct.
Okay.
There are certain procedural legal steps that need to be taken at the council level in order to adopt the budget and levy taxes for the upcoming fiscal year.
I know that a lot of folks in here are deeply concerned about this topic. The reason why I asked Nancy to go through that was to make sure that Budget law is very convoluted sometimes, and if you're an average citizen in the public, you know, it's like, what are you guys doing again? But I want to make sure it's clear what stage that we're at, knowing that the budget committee, if you want to show up and share public comment about that, that would be a good place to show up and do that. And there's no, like, we're going to take your public testimony, we will consider it, we will respond, but there's no actual action item for this tonight. And so I want you to be aware that all the action items come in meetings that are in early May and potentially in June. So you should please just keep caught up on the city's calendar for when those public meetings are coming up. With that, unless council's got any other question, I am going to call you up 2 at a time. So there's 2 spots. We'll do your first person for 3 minutes. We'll do the second person, and then it is green. You have to hit the button until it's green. You see that they're all red right now, and then you will be on. You're going to state your name and address, ward, or location in the city, depending on your comfort level for the record. First 2 people are Teresa Rourke and Tony Rush.
Be kind of hard to follow up on some of these folks behind me.
Could you just take a seat? Yeah, but we do have a virtual meeting that's going on right now. And so if you don't speak into the microphone, the people that are in the virtual part of the meeting can't hear you. Well, I really appreciate it. So you're gonna hit the button until it goes green. Hit the button right in front of you and it's gonna go from red to green.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, my name is Tony Rush. I live at 32nd Street in Springfield. I've lived in Springfield for many years. And for the last 3 years, I've been trying to get the Public Works Department of Springfield to seal crack the street that I live on because there's 1/2-inch wide cracks in the street. So I've talked to the street department for 3 years in a row. And the answer I get is every time is we have no money. So I looked at that situation and I'm trying to think of ways that Springfield could have more money in their budget. And I would ask how many people in this room buy gas at Costco? And I would imagine it's over 20%. Every time you fill your gas tank up at Costco, you're paying Eugene 5 cents a gallon for their street repair. Are you aware of that? What are you doing about that?
This isn't a back and forth. So just finish your comments, please. Thank you so much.
My proposal is to this city council to get in touch with Costco in some way, get their you have to buy your gas at Costco with a credit card. They could put some kind of a device on your credit card to make that money go to Springfield because Springfield and Eugene are divided by a freeway. It's not like I'm talking about Salem and Eugene, one city versus the other. We are separated by a major gas company by 1.5 miles. And so if you have an executive card at Costco, you get 5% back. The Springfield service stations cannot compete with Costco. There's just no way they can do that. But I make a proposal that if the council would contact Costco and get something on the device of their credit card to send that money to Springfield instead of Eugene. I have some rentals in Eugene and they've done some street repair near my addresses in Eugene. I called the city up and said, why did you not at least seal coat the street that those buildings are on? And I went over there a week later and the job was finished. All I had to do was make a phone call. I'm 3 years into this and I'm about ready to go repair the street in front of my house myself because the longer this goes on, the worse it gets. I know you got a budget problem. You got things in the mix about bonds and raising the gas tax, and voters are getting tired of taxes. I looked at my taxes before I come down here, and Willamette Lane gets 12.5% of my taxes that I pay at my address every year. I don't drive my car on Willamette Lane.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Rourke. I'm in Ward 2, and I want to start by thanking all of you for your service to our community. And I also want to thank everyone who has applied to serve on the Springfield City Council. I'm here this evening to speak in support of Callie Ackland for City Council. I think her professional experience serving our country in the U.S. military as a small business owner and more recently working directly with people experiencing housing insecurity will be valuable for the City Council. I also think that her experience working in support of the Springfield Public Library, a public institution that welcomes everyone in our community and builds trust between the government and the community, is a really beneficial illustration of her work to strengthen public process and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two folks are Amanda Wolberg and Amelia and Evelyn Pyers. Why don't we do this? Why don't you hang out for a second and then we'll have you up. Thank you so much for your patience, Amanda. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Evelyn. I am 5 years old. The library is important. We should keep the librarians. The library is important because the librarians help us to read and help us to find books. Story time helps us learn to listen and to pay attention. And it helps us to learn to be quiet when other people are reading something. I love the library because we get to pick out new books and do other fun stuff. I love the library. The library should stay the same, if not better. There are a lot of kids who come to this library. The library teaches many things like learning how to read, getting better at reading, and just plain enjoying it. Storytime is very popular too. Without Storytime, the library probably wouldn't get a lot of people in and possibly even go out of business. This town needs a library, a good one, so I was thinking we could raise taxes by $5 and that money could go to the library. Also, we should get our fired librarians back. They help the kids to find a lot of books. Also, many people would be very devastated. They would probably go to a different library. Also, I give this library a 5-star rating, and I don't want that to change. We should really keep our library how it is.
All right, Mom, you should be super proud. That was pretty amazing. They stole the show for the night. Amanda?
Should I start?
Yes, please.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amanda Wolberg, and I'm a student at LCC studying criminal law. I'm here today to ask you to implement a local police oversight committee. This would not be an expensive thing to do, as in my proposal, I would strongly insist that it run off volunteers. All you would need is a place to operate out of. Whether you lean left or right, I think we can all agree that corruption in our country is at an unprecedented level. The level of corruption I have personally experienced is alarming, and I wrote an essay I'm asking you to read detailing what I know. It is disturbing to say the least. It touches on topics like child trafficking, murder, and abuse in the system, and I assure you it's not somewhere far away. It's in our own backyard and has been for a long time. Public safety is at stake, and law enforcement's duty is to protect and serve society, to keep the community safe. We are owed transparency. Lane County, according to policescorecard.org, has a 1% rate of misconduct complaints being upheld. Instituting a volunteer-based civilian oversight committee would be beneficial for a number of reasons. To keep track of the inmates in jail and their safety and welfare, to make sure people are not just disappearing into the system and that their housing conditions are safe, to hold police accountable to the law they are sworn to serve, and to aid citizens who are crime victims that are not being taken seriously or receiving justice. I would believe that it would be healthy to bridge the gap and create more understanding and interaction between police and civilians. The police need oversight and intervention to make sure they are doing their job rather than abusing their power. I spoke to a cop who told me the two things that cause corruption are money and sex. If money is not a thing in this committee, it is simply formed by volunteers who care about community safety, transparency, and justice. This is far less likely to become corrupted. Furthermore, it would bridge the gap between civilians and law enforcement. I think right now there is a real us and them mentality between police and civilians, as you can see in the protests sometimes. But even in our Pledge of Allegiance, it says we are one nation under God. More interaction with citizens would perhaps humanize both sides to each other and create more unity and safety in the community. I have more ideas about what would be involved in this, so if there's a way for you to read my essay and we could discuss this further or schedule discussing it further, that would be a good first step. Unfortunately, this is just a foot in the pond, and if you read the essay, you will be drawn into the deep, murky waters of systemic corruption. I have nothing to gain by sharing this information with you. I put myself at risk to be ridiculed, but when considering if you should believe someone or not, consider what they have to gain or lose by sharing the information. I have received various degrees of threats from law enforcement. That being said, I am not anti-law enforcement. Cops that uphold the law and do their job, I have great respect for. And I think this would be a step towards ensuring that this happens, as well as public transparency. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next two cards I have are Ariel Sexton and Mary Harwood. Okay. I let it go for the clapping for kids, but if we could please hold up. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Ariel and I'm a Springfield resident. I'm here to show my support for the Springfield Library and to implore you to listen to the residents of this town as we demand accountability and transparency. You say we need to wait until next month to discuss the budget, but you are already making budget decisions without us. We need to know why 2 librarian positions were terminated prior to the public meeting next month. Who authorized this and why was it done behind closed doors? Why did you recently authorize, a 5% wage increase to the city manager when she was already earning over $218,000 a year? Every resident of this town has to budget our finances and prioritize spending. This council needs to do the same and hear us as we say that the library is a priority.
Thank you. Mary?
Thank you. My name is Mary Harwood, and I live at 738 Aspen Street. There's 2 things I wanted to talk to you about tonight. The first is concerning the ease with which you can find the meetings that are scheduled for the City of Springfield on your website. It's difficult to search for these. A quick search today showed that there are no meetings scheduled for May because the search function looks for agendas and not for scheduled meetings. Think what message that sends about the ease of about the transparency of these meetings that we're having. Other local government agencies have much simpler systems. Look to Springfield Public Schools, 4J or Bethel School Districts, Eugene City, for example. You can even look to the website of the City of Criswell for great examples of ways that your citizens can easily find these scheduled meetings and not just the agendas and recordings once the meetings are passed. If you value transparency and public participation in government, then you need to do better. And if you don't, then you would continue to do what you've already been doing. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about tonight was regarding the library. As you know, this weekend on social media, it was reported that library staff have already received layoff notices. Is this the proposed budget being implemented before the City Council has a chance to vote on a budget plan? That's certainly putting the cart before the horse. City management is making this process harder by acting before the council has voted. These cuts are on top of the position which was already cut last year, according to Lookout Eugene Springfield. And I'm wondering how many other departments have cut 3 positions in the last 2 years. Why is the library bearing the brunt of forming a balanced budget? This is a significant cut in personnel for a library that is already the lowest funded for a community of this size in Oregon. More troubling for me is how this action circumvents the city's process and the role of you, the council. Who is making the decision about the proposed budget and acting on it? It appears that either the city council has directed managers to implement a plan before a public vote on the proposal, or city managers are acting with their own accord outside of the purview of the council. Either scenario is troubling and likely a violation of the law. The city council needs to be asking their city managers about this precipitous action and demand an explanation. There's no action item for tonight, but apparently city management didn't see the need to wait to act. If transparent, ethical government is the aim of this body, you have some work to do. Thank you.
Hey, guys, no, so please, we do not accept applause. You can so that'll make it go faster and quicker for everybody. The next two people are Aloha Hart and Donna Riddle.
Can I move this toward, okay, you can hear me?
Okay, well, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Go first, Donna. I'm Aloha Hart, 2147 Centennial Boulevard, Springfield, Oregon, 97477. I appreciate what I have heard from previous speakers about the process of decisions being made about the library and also about decisions being made, no offense to anyone, but about who's getting raises, how and why, and whatever. I am here because I love Springfield. I called the Springfield High School and I called Thurston High School today because I was curious about how many young people, what's the percentage of young people in their schools that are Latino. Springfield High School has 33% Latinos and Thurston High School has 17%. That's a lot of kids that are in this city. I have neighbors who are not white. They are scared. They talk to me about it. Their kids are scared. But the one place that I can say is absolutely safe for everyone is the Springfield Library. They do a stellar job of taking care of all people. And they speak Spanish. They celebrate the Latino community as well as everybody else. And to think about the fact that two people, if it's correct, and I have heard that more than once, have already been let go, I think that is really short-sighted. It does not show heart for the people that live in this city, and it doesn't take into consideration the absolutely stellar and magnificent job that our librarians do and the services and safety, the safety and inclusion that they provide. And that's what I have to say. And I know I get emotional, but it's in my blood. I'm Italian, so I've kept it peaceful. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Aloha. Donna.
My name is Donna Riddle. I live on I Street in Springfield, 19th and I. And I'm very upset at the proposed cuts for the library. I go to the library usually once a week. I donate jigsaw puzzles, which they sell to be able to buy a few more books. But I have never been so impressed with any library, and I've visited several, including the University of Oregon Library. But please don't cut it. And I need to be able to go there on a Monday. And I understand that they'll only be able to do 5 days a week if you guys go through with your cuts. And I'm very upset that it was done and layoff notice went out before the budget process. And that is not transparent, and it's not something that I'm proud of our government for doing. Thank you.
Next two folks are Kai Fireside and Vicky Sherrill.
Congratulations on getting my last name correct. It is Sherelle. So enough, I think, has been said about the lack of transparency and the lack of process. So what I'm going to talk about is what I feel needs to be saved in this seemingly looming budget cut for the library. I have to say that I'm sorry about our previous speaker, but libraries need to stay open on Saturday. And if you are going to cut 2 days a week, please don't cut a Saturday, because parents need to be able to take their children to the library. It's important that kids are brought to the library so that reading becomes a family value. I also believe that you must keep the pre-K programs in place. I am a special education teacher with the Springfield School District, and studies have showed that dyslexia has an inherited component. I've seen many parents of kids with dyslexia who just don't read because reading is hard for them. But it is very important that they can bring their young children to the library and get story time. The other thing that has also been talked about a little bit is the importance of keeping the Hispanic cultural programs going. Imagine walking into a place where basically everything is in a language you don't know, but you're trying to get your kids to learn that language. It's very important that it continues to be welcoming for our Hispanic neighbors. The bilingual aspect is so important, but so are the cultural aspects there to make it feel like it is their place as well. That also goes for other people, such as the parents with dyslexia. They need to feel like it's not just all about reading, which is uncomfortable for them. So budget will be what it is. Processes are important. Having people feel like they're being heard is important. But please keep in mind that the library serves more than just a place where people can look at books. Thank you.
Thank you. Kai Fireside.
Hi, my name is Kai Fireside. I live inside Ward 1. I remember being a teenager and learning the word ennui and latching onto it because it's a French word that means crushing boredom. And that's what being a teenager felt like, because there was nothing to do. There are so few third places for teens to go. And the library is one of them, but this library in particular has incredible teen programs that they run. And the employee that was given notice runs those programs. And I don't know how she does that, because that is the most terrifying job in the world to me. I think it's some kind of magic. But that loss is absolutely gigantic, and I'm hoping that we can find some creative way to fix that, because it sort of sounds like this is not a fully made decision, but also she's received paperwork, so that does seem like the decision is set in stone. This is very confusing. Like I said, I live inside Ward 1, but not technically in the city limits, so this is my library card, and I have to pay $100 a year for it. And I would do that and more to keep these teen programs going, because I don't know what anyone is supposed to do with a teenager these days if they can't go to the library. So some kind of creativity here. I've heard about cutting the materials budget instead of the salary budget. And, to me, that sounds like a better idea, but I trust that you can find some way here to figure this out, because otherwise these kids are going to be roaming the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two cards I have are Stephanie Ruin. It's clearly with an R. I cannot read. Oh, yes, it is Rivera. And Rob Sheldon.
Okay, it's green. Hi, I'm Stephanie Rivera. I still don't know what ward I'm in, 12th and Centennial, longtime lurker, first time poster. I mainly just want to speak to the library cuts, and the funding. I really appreciate the city manager explaining the process. I haven't had dinner yet, so I didn't understand a lot of it, but, it does sound like this group is passing the buck back and forth between each other and the state. And it doesn't inspire confidence as a resident of this city and a patron of the library. I've gone to this library since I was in 5th grade. I still patronize this library. I use Libby. I request books. And this isn't the first meeting I've been to here to talk about it. I've been to action item meetings, I think 2 of them last year, and the library is still on the chopping block. I appreciate city manager saying that she's reluctant to make cuts, but that doesn't inspire confidence. So if that's the plan, however reluctantly, I just wanted to come out and say that I'm really disappointed. And I wish different choices were made by whoever is going to take the blame for making the choice. Thank you.
Sheldon, thank you. Good evening. My name for the record is Rob Sheldon. I live on Hayden Bridge Way. I'd like to start with a public statement of appreciation for Springfield Police Department's handling of No Kings 3 here. Springfield was one of 3,300 cities across the country that hosted demonstrations that nationally attracted over 8 million people, setting a new record for the largest single-day protest in our country's history. Thanks also to looks like he's left, but the first gentleman that spoke this evening. I wasn't aware of the gas tax difference between the 2 cities. I think a small public information campaign could probably be helpful here. I'd also like to make an unequivocal statement of support for the Springfield Public Library. I was able to become a software engineer thanks to a public library. Your public library is a beautiful facility in a fantastic downtown location and supports its community, not just in providing the kind of services that someone would expect from a public library, but also in providing resources like meeting rooms and in community outreach programs. 2 library positions have now been cut in the last few days as a result of action or inaction by this city council. One of those positions was the teen services librarian, which will likely lead to the cancellation of teen-oriented programs at the library. I appreciate some of the explanations by the city manager, but I think it's incredibly disingenuous to describe this as a proposed budget that where there's decisions yet to be made and have layoff notices be going out already. Decisions like this clearly communicate your priorities. There has been some finger pointing at the city manager, but you have power to act here. If in fact the city manager isn't handling this or other issues the way you want them handled, then you have a duty to act immediately to reverse this damage. If you don't act, then the city manager is acting with your tacit approval, and that means that cuts to library services is a decision that you made and you own it. Some of you are campaigning for other positions right now. I encourage you to fully embrace the cuts to the library, brag about it, don't hide from it. Tell voters, I don't believe that libraries are important, so I did nothing to defend ours. Take pride in the outcome you helped achieve. Springfield is following a longtime pattern of national decision-making by people in positions of authority who are terrified of controversy, terrified of taking a principled stand on any issue. This is not just a problem of national politics, but also in our state and local politics, where the stakes are so low that it leaves many of us wondering why political systems are so particularly good at attracting invertebrates. And so I ask you to have the courage to make good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next 2. Please, no. Thank you. Blake Helm and Andrew, I think it's Gimmott.
Bad handwriting, don't worry about it.
Thank you for giving me an out.
Good evening. My name is Blake Helm. I live at 462 35th Street in Ward 4. I'm speaking tonight to express my frustration and disappointment with recent reductions in library staffing levels and proposed cuts to the library budget. The library is a vital community service, as important as police or fire. Some of the most vulnerable in our community rely on the essential services provided by the library. When police and fire need funds, this group and the community are often quick to support a property tax levy or other efforts to ensure service levels are maintained. But the library seems to always be on the chopping block when the budget is tight. I cannot, in good conscience, vote or support property tax levies put forward by the city or other local entities for that matter, and I encourage others to do the same until solutions are presented and the community has a real say in the outcome of the library. I will end with this. 2 families in this community now have a harder time because of these cuts. The ripple effects of this will continue long after this year and the next. I remind you that your hands are not tired or are not tied, and to do better.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. My name is Andrew Emmett. I have a student at Guiley Elementary, another at Hamlin Middle, and yes, I have a wife who is a public librarian here at SPL. My wife has taken so much pride in the library programs that she has put together over the years, and especially over how she has gotten attendance to them to increase year after year after year after year. And I say this as not only as a reminder that the library drives foot traffic to our small businesses downtown, but that it has only improved at that over time. And that it has done that despite being very underfunded per capita relative to state norms. So to repeat, you have an underfunded, overperforming library that consistently brings foot traffic to small businesses downtown. Now, last time I was here, Mayor Van Gordon made it sound like the issue of library cuts was going to get its moment for public input. Instead, without public input, city management has cut 2 positions from the library and reduced its operating hours to Tuesday through Saturday, which means starting in July, my wife and every other parent who works at the library will never spend another Saturday with their children again. That these cuts are ever touted as efficiency is insulting and irresponsible, especially when you look at the numbers. Again, last time I was here, Council President Weber pointed out that the library budget was 2.2 million. Perhaps we were supposed to bulk at this number, and that it needed to be right-sized. What you didn't mention is that 2.2 million is less than 5% of the entire budget, so you could cover the cost of the library by making every department take just a 5% cut. And if you were to right-size the library, that is, fund it to the state median per capita funding, you would increase its budget by 1.1 million. In 2024, police overspent on their overtime by more than that amount. And yet mayor's task force only suggested maybe asking the police to maybe work out their overtime issues. So if the proposed payroll tax was increased to match Eugene's, maybe it shouldn't, but if it were, that would easily raise another $4.4 million, which is more than enough to cover library. Apparently we have staffing issues with the police department too, more cops, if that makes it more palatable to some people. The point is there's a lot of daylight between how the library is being treated and what actual solutions are. My time's up, so I'll cut it off.
Thank you. The next 2 folks that I have are Sue Manderville and Elizabeth is with an H. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. My husband and I wrote a letter in support of Ward 4 candidate Callie Ackland. It was sent to the mayor and all the city councilors on February 28th. But it was not included in the written community comments packet. I understand there are more letters of support for Miss Ackland that were also never entered into the public record. Looking at the written community comments, one would think most of Springfield is for Mr. McAllister. Yet the picture would be much different if my letter and the letters of other Miss Ackland supporters had not been excluded. I asked why, and was told that counselors are under no obligation to forward citizen emails for publication. So the situation is that all the counselors and the mayor received many letters of support for Ms. Ackland, but only forwarded the letters of support for Mr. McAllister to be included in the written public comments. As a Springfield citizen, that makes me both sad and angry. I'm sad because our voices aren't being heard. Actually, it's more than that. Our voices are being silenced. I'm suggesting 3 things. 1, make the process of getting citizens' opinions into the written public comments much more clear. And 2, correct the existing public record to include the letters of support for Ms. Ackland. I've been told this cannot happen, but if you read the Ward 4 interim counselor appointment process memorandum from the city attorney to the city manager's office, and I quote, "The interviews, deliberation, and voting must occur at an open public meeting. The council has agreed to share written communications they receive about appointing an interim counselor, and they will be all compiled in a council packet," end quote. And finally, 3, from what I've experienced, it appears as if the council has already decided Mr. McAllister is to be the new Ward 4 counselor. I hope this is not the case.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Halverson. I'm in Ward 2, and I am very happy to be here as a parent, as a Springfield citizen, someone who grew up here, graduated from Springfield High, and has been going to the library for a very long time. I know you've all let us know all the information we have, and I also really know that you all are going to hear about this in May. The problem is following the process. We're here because positions have been given notice. So please just pretend that we are all here as well on the night that we have the deliberations and take all of this to heart. I don't know much about much, but I've been watching body language, and I had my heart melted when those little girls who worked very hard came to support their library. I really think Springfield gets razzed on a lot for not being civilized, maybe by Eugene, maybe by others. But we need to recognize that in order to have a civilized society, we need to make sure that we don't reduce the last free space we have in our community, the last clean air location we have in smoky summers, the last warm place in the winter, the last bathroom that you can use without paying for it. This is a civilization need that we are resting on the laurels of history, and we are failing right now. And that is why we are all here. And I am so heartened by everyone who has already shared. And I just implore you to understand we care about this. This is important. And I'm sure you guys too, and you have huge hurdles to try to cover. We have street cracks to fix too. So I know there's a lot of problems here, but I really need you to understand, and please hear us. We really do not want our library to be cut. And we appreciate all that you are doing. And I want to second that the Springfield Police did a great job at the protest. It was beautiful and wonderful, and I'm very grateful for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're past 35 minutes. We've got 2 more cards left. My suggestion would be that we finish the 2 cards that we have, and then we'll go to the online folks. I want to make sure we have 2 cards left. Yes, we have 2 cards left. James Anderson and Christopher Pfister, thank you. Thank you.
Right, you know who I am. My name is James Anderson. I live on South Redwood Drive. I worked for the city of Springfield for a decade. I was a founding member of the city's diversity committee. Okay? Based on my experience going through that, City Manager Nancy Newton, Assistant City Manager Neil Ladati, and HR Director Chaim Hertz are serial liars and shouldn't be trusted. All right? You knew about it because I emailed you a copy of the tort claims notice when I sued the city of Springfield for discrimination and retaliation, one of many, many lawsuits that was covered by local legacy media registered guard for discrimination and retaliation. Many employees have, city of Springfield employees primarily. After our publicly funded independent investigation, I filed a FOIA request to City Attorney Mary Bridget Smith, who refused it. All right. This was publicly funded. We paid for this. And she used two different excuses to prevent the release of these public files. Sean, you've been a part of this. You knew about it. Okay. You are part of the systemic racism in Springfield. And all of you on city council lack the courage and the integrity to make public statements denouncing the discrimination and retaliation from the city of Springfield employees, police employees specifically, many lawsuits. So I urge you to take a stance as leaders in the community, and and stop putting up with admin's lies. City Manager Nancy Newton got a raise, and then you turned around and decided to close down the city library, parts of it. You took cuts out of that, and while you gave her a raise. So why don't you hold admin accountable? And as the city city charter calls on you to do, hire and fire the city manager and the city attorney. All right. Why don't you do what your political position requires you to do before you think about running for another position? I yield my time.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Christopher Pfister. I go to the A3 and I live in Springfield, Ward 2. I go down to the library. It is one of the best places for me to do when I'm grounded, have nothing to do. When I need to go talk to a friend, when I want to have a meeting down, because there are meeting places all over the library. I think there's 5 of them, and those won't be open as much, won't be used as much if the library funding isn't there. I also want to talk about the teen programs. There are about, I would say, 10 to 15 people there almost every single time I go to a Teen Tuesday, from 4 to 6, I believe. And there is always just fun activities, and it is volunteers of the Springfield teens to actually go and pick the activities that we do there. I also want to bring up that the library is where I found many opportunities for myself. I was able to find a summer program called Young Leaders, which is completely free. It was something that was brought up for the library, that was an entire day camp at the library, which they have no other place in Springfield to do this at. They are underfunded, but anyways, I would never have met that, never would have been to the spelling bee as a judge because of that. I also know that people like me, people who were adopted, people who have PTSD, they need places to be able to go and talk about that and be able to not have their librarians that help them out just get cuts before the entire it has been passed. Also, I know that I knew about the likelihood of it being cut like at least a month or two ago. And so it was really frustrating to not be able to do anything about it as far as I knew, about my librarians that I've been talking with, being able to uh, be part of. And yeah, it was frustrating to see that they literally were, sorry, yeah.
Thank you. Online, please.
Yes, we still have two hands. The first speaker is Theo Campbell, and Theo, you should be able to unmute your microphone.
You know, you can hear you. Could you say something?
Working on it.
Oh, there you are.
There we go. Okay. How do I sound?
You sound great. Could you state your name for the record and your location in the city? And then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Theo Campbell. I live in Springfield in Ward 3. I'm a member of and I'm here to represent the Teen Advisory Board for the Springfield Public Library's Teen Focus programs. It's come to my attention that the library has been subject to budget cuts, and due to those budget cuts, our beloved Teen Services librarian is at serious risk of losing her position if she hasn't already. Without her, the library's teen services programs can no longer happen. This news saddens me to my core, as the teen programs, especially Teen Tuesday, have become a weekly event of some of the best educational activities that I have had the pleasure of helping to host. Thanks to them, I've been able to learn so much about our city and our world, and have made so many new connections that would never have been possible without them. If adjusting the budget isn't feasible, I propose that the library or city hall has a system that allows and encourages donations from the public. I strongly believe that a better decision can be made that ensures the library remains a place where minds grow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And the next speaker is Austin Full-Nagy, and Austin should be able to unmute your microphone.
Excellent. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, we can, Austin.
Excellent. For the record, my name is Austin Full-Nagy. I am a board member of Lane Community College. I live up the Mackenzie River Valley area. And I don't represent the board's opinion in my position here today, but I do want to stand up as a local elected public official to support the library and the staff of the library. Mayor and City Manager, I appreciate the presentation before this public meeting, because it is important to understand public meeting law and how it works and so forth. So I appreciate you talking about that beforehand. And I do want to speak to the City Council as well as the City Budget Committee, that a big part of my decision as an elected official is to approach decisions with an equity lens, meaning the decisions I make, is it going to be impacting marginalized communities? What groups of people are going to be impacted by my decisions? And I feel that this library is one of those decisions that is going to greatly impact the citizens of Springfield and the surrounding community. As I said, I live up the Mackenzie River Valley. And during the September 2020 fires, the Holiday Farm fire, our rural library was completely destroyed. We weren't able to get our library back until 2024. And the devastation of that was immense within our community up the Mackenzie River. And it might seem like minor reductions to the library won't necessarily have that same impact, but it can be very devastating, not only to your young people, your teens, Hispanic communities, people who are fleeing from natural disasters, but also just the opportunities of learning and understanding. Because a library isn't just a building full of books. It is with people, staff that help people learn and understand their world and the history of our world, the history of our community, and what can we learn from that. In education, we teach people how to think as opposed to what to think. Libraries do the exact same thing. And I asked the city council as well as the budget committee and city managers to consider other options here because, as I stated, we lost our library, and reductions to your library hours and staff can just as equally be as devastating as a natural disaster like a wildfire taking out your library. I appreciate the time to speak here tonight, and thank you for all the speakers and supporters of your library. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Do we have anybody else?
No other speakers.
Okay, so we have opportunity for council response. Does anybody want to provide council response?
Not yet.
Councilor Buck.
I really appreciate everybody that came out to speak on the various topics. It's one of the things that I really value about Springfield, and one of the things that counselors, myself, and others really value. If we don't hear from you, then we don't have your perspective. And so I just always want to appreciate everything you guys bring forward. Some things are great to hear. Some things, when we have tough decisions and tough things coming up, they're not always comfortable. But we didn't sign up for this to be comfortable. We signed up for this to hear the good and the bad. And so thank you guys for bringing that out to us this evening. Not all of us have been here for a long time. Some of us have, but it doesn't change that we appreciate your perspective, and we appreciate what we can't do our jobs without your support and your voices to telling us what our community needs from your perspective, because at the end of the day, that's why we're here, is to try and bring your perspective to our leaders here at the city. So thank you for everybody that came to speak, and everybody that sent emails and talked to us about the things that are important to you and your thoughts on the subjects. Appreciate it very much.
I've got a couple of comments, and then I'll just chat about the library. Mary, could you send? Do you have a written copy of your comments? Could you? Yeah, the question around searching for future meetings, and I've seen the other sites that you're having, but we definitely would like to take a look at it. We're scheduled to meet every Monday, but that is a muscle for us, and continuing to communicate better to the public is someplace that we're looking to do. Did Sue leave? Oh, okay. I will check my email. I saw your email. I read your email, and I read Mike's email as well. I will double check to make sure I have sent all of them over. When we did the interviews, that was one of the asks that we had, was when we go into deliberations on 420s to make sure we had everything, forwarded to everybody so that they can see it. My guess, look, I saw it as part of the, I couldn't tell you. I would be speculating. I'm telling you, I hear you. We'll fix it. We'll look at it for the 420 meeting to make sure everybody's in there. For most folks, if you're sending in emails and you want to have it be part of it, it's really got to be in by the week prior. Otherwise, they're going to bring us copies of it. And if you watch the meeting from before, we chatted about just bringing all the letters and all the public input to make sure everybody's got the same information. Vicky, I wrote your notes down. That was really great feedback. Look, I know we're trying to work through a very complicated situation. I hear you guys, but you telling us, what you prioritize is very impactful, to make sure that we keep that in mind. And then I do not know, somebody mentioned that, I think you mentioned that that we're not maybe going to all be here, together when it comes for budget committee, and to take this into account. And I just wanted to tell you guys, even though we're not acting on the situation, I took a lot of notes. It is something that I'm thinking about as we get into this next this next set of budget conversations, to take into account that you've come out here tonight, you've shared your feedback. I've heard you clearly. And as we go through this next little bit, I will take it into account. With that, Councilor Moe.
Earlier asked me if I had anything to say about what was going on tonight. I think I'm going to have to wait till we go through the entire budget process and see what is real. So that will be my time.
All right. I really appreciate folks coming out tonight. I know it is warm in here and I know we've been going for a little while. We still have a couple items left to go through. You're more than welcome to stay. But if it will not hurt our feelings if you decide that you don't want to talk about the Home Consortium IGA. So we'll give you about a couple of minutes if you want to scoot out. Thank you so much for coming.
Weights. I was like, good. I'm sorry, that was the best roast I've had in a while.
Guys can still clear the room because we do have another item. I'm going to call the next item. CJ, if you could clear the room. We still have more items and we still got staff folks and news folks here to cover those. Lizzie? 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 If you guys can continue to clear the room, that would be great. All right, next item, please.
Next item for the record, correspondence and petition. A letter has been added from Robert Supply regarding the payroll tax.
I have a procedural question because it's been so long. I don't think we've had these since I've been mayor. To a motion to file it.
I don't believe so. For this one, I think it's in the packet and you're okay.
All right.
And
You guys came up with the curveball on this one. All right, next item, please.
Next item under resolutions, resolution number 1 is the Home Consortium Intergovernmental Agreement Renewal. Aaron Fifield is here for this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight with a resolution giving authority to the city manager to sign a 3-year intergovernmental agreement with the city of Eugene in order to continue being part of the Home Consortium and receive federal home funds for the development of low-income qualified housing units in Springfield. Some examples of recent home-funded projects in Springfield include the Alma Apartments over on 16th, Hayden Bridge Landing just north of Fred Meyer on 5th, and then recently funded, though not completed yet, Loris Street Apartments, as well as Sawyer Station, a proposed 40-unit development at 16th and Main Street. The city has been in a home consortium with the city of Eugene since 1992. The city of Springfield is not large enough of a city to receive home funding on its own, but by partnering with the city of Eugene, we can bring more funds into the region and have a direct role in selecting projects for home funds. This resolution is one of the federal requirements we need to fulfill in order to receive home funding, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? I think we're ready for a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution of the City of Springfield authorizing the city manager to execute the federal fiscal year 2027-2029 Eugene Springfield Home Consortium Intergovernmental Agreement.
Second.
Could you call the vote, please?
Yes, Counselor Weber.
Yes.
Counselor Moe.
Yes.
Counselor Rodley. Counselor Buck.
Yes.
And Counselor Stout.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes. 4 yeses, 0 noes, 1 absent. Next item, please.
Any business from the city council?
I do not think we have any business.
Any business from the city manager?
Just a few quick items, please. I wanted to follow up on a couple of the items of testimony, Mayor. You accurately kind of predicted what I was going to say. Earlier, Ms. Harwood talked about could we be better about looking for future meeting content? I think that's a really good suggestion to look into. We've made some changes on our webpage and also in our agenda management system. So I think it is a good suggestion that we could look into that and see what our capability is. If we don't have the capability to do that now, it's certainly worth a look to see how we could make that a more robust feature. So I appreciate that feedback.
Also, Ms. Mandeville's, really appreciated her thoughtful suggestion about providing clear instructions about how to provide written feedback to council. I think it's incredibly important that our community understand how they can provide input to their elected officials, either verbally or in written form. So I think we can definitely beef up that section as well. And also look at the correspondence that she sent. I know that our clerk has sent it forward to all of you. So I know you've had it at least a couple of times, but we will also make sure that it is included in the next packet for the next public record. So just wanted to reiterate that because of the cutoff for publishing deadlines in order to meet the legal notice for this meeting, sometimes we just have to cut a line in the sand and when we publish the packet, but then we can catch up, take the ones that occurred after the deadline and put them in the next public meeting for the council in that packet. So we'll certainly make sure that we do this. We know that this is an important issue. Thank you.
Any business from the city attorney?
Wait, hang on.
Sorry.
Nancy, just as a comment on that topic of public record, I know I forwarded a couple for Luke McAllister as well that didn't make it into the packet. So it's not just Miss Ackland's that didn't make it in there.
Counselor, thank you. We will make sure that if there's any stragglers out there or any comments that didn't, we'll cross-reference that to what we've received and then make sure it gets included into the packet for the 20th.
Just wanted to make sure I'm clear, because who do we need to be forwarding those to? Because I want to go back and I want to forward out everything that I received to make sure that you guys have it. And that's probably my error in not doing that. I kind of thought that it had been captured already. So that was a learning lesson for me. But what email box does that need to get forwarded to?
Counselor, I can answer your question. And you're actually, this is an interesting distinction if you guys don't mind nerding out with me for just a minute. When anyone sends an email to a city employee or to a council member, it becomes a public record. So it is retained in the public record, so to speak, being this nebulous concept of a public record, but we retain those emails and there's different retention schedules for correspondence. So the act of emailing a city employee or a government official is in itself submitting something to the public records as it stands with our retention policies. The distinction is if you want your comment to be included with the packet of information as a written comment to council. Our council receives both. And so I think there's some consternation with people that feel like, oh, I might have sent an email, but that doesn't mean that the council read it or that it's not part of the record. In fact, it is part of the record because we retain that. But I think we could be clearer, and I'll work with the city attorney on this as well, in our language about how to submit written testimony and how to direct that testimony. As far as you as a counselor, you can certainly send that to the general city manager's email, or that gets checked, or you can send it directly to the city clerk recorder. Thank you.
We've done this process a couple of times. The first few times we didn't find an area for improvement, and now we have found one. Right.
Just to apologize for speaking over you, Councilor Weber. Didn't see your microphone. Any
next item?
Anything from the city attorney?
No business, thank you.
Adjourned. Thank you.